Here we go. We're going live on Instagram and Facebook. There's Jonhson here. Some know me as Rattletrap 1776. Woo! What a week it's been! Well, I tell you what, if you're jumping ship now, you never were on the ship. You weren't even on the little boats that rescue you. You were a barnacle that thought you were something. But to all you OGs out there, all the patriots, all you President Trump supporters, all the OGs, just all the OGs, whoever you are, hold the line, baby. Even though none of this is real time, this is all for the target audience, the normies as we call them. God love them. God love them is all I can say. Some of them I don't like them, but God love them. He does. All right. So I'm going to get straight at it. Got a lot of notes. A lot of notes. This is how I do things. I write things down. Now, I don't typically like notes, and every one of you OGs know that I don't need notes, but because I want to get through the first 3 or 4 pages, I'm going to do some kind of concise reading, but more or less excerpts. And then we're going to get to the meat of everything and explain why and how this would look this way and how it was pulled off successfully, the military government that you're watching. And there's been validations. There's been some validations today and yesterday. Validity, again, as always. What do you think? What do people think? We're not going to be validated? We're validated. But also, people in my position that's been put here. So, again, 45-47. It can't get any more clear than that. I mean, this is daily, weekly. Now, I have my books out. I have my documents, and I have my contract signed to write my books, where I signed my contract at Trump International with the man present a month before he put this on his ball cap. Now, you can't make that up. This was put on here April the 2nd, 2023. I signed my contract to write these books that are the only books that talk about the 45-47. They're #1 bestsellers, by the way. All right, The Midnight Rider Rides Again, Part 1, Part 2. I signed that a month before he put this on here. So if you're struggling at this point, it's by choice. It's not because you don't have answers, solutions. If you don't have peace and comfort at this point, it's your fault, because you're still trying to listen to everybody and anybody, and you better be listening to military. This is an operation, and some of us were put here strategically for you. That's all I'm going to say about that. These surface level influencers out there, they're the same face, same name, same mouth, zero knowledge, zero information. They'll put up questions like, hey, what do you think about this? That's all to spin their algorithms up. They don't care about you. I'm the only person that gives you layers 2 and 3 and 4 hours worth of laws and orders that requires initiative, thinking, logic, study time, right? So it's there. So a lot of people who are whining and complaining right now, it's because you want to whine and complain. You're following people who have zero knowledge, zero logic, zero thinking, zero background in anything. And that's a product of today's technology. It's just where we are. But what we're finding right now is that most Americans, you have zero respect. Not you patriots. You're excluded. Remember, my videos are for the people who are new. Remember that. My videos are for you to show your family and your friends. You have zero respect, zero gratitude, and zero appreciation for the military. Not your daddy and your mama or your auntie and your uncle or your son or your daughter that served in the military. We're talking about zero respect for military strategies and tactics that date back thousands of years. Simply saying, oh, your family member served, that don't cut it. Especially if it weren't you. And then we got negativity. The negativity and the attitudes are horrendous out there. The attitude is everything. Why is everybody looking for something wrong? Everybody's always looking for something to be wrong. Why don't you start trying to get something right? How come so many people are negative? Yeah, negative, 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 negative. You always want something wrong. There was a time before social media when people didn't know anything about a topic or a subject where you'd be embarrassed or humiliated to even comment because you didn't know anything about it. Now everybody has an opinion. Everybody's got to say something, and you don't know anything about anything. So do you really want a solution, or do you really love drama? Because a lot of us think you just love drama. You look like you love drama. You love wallowing in the mud. And you're the very ones who will get on your social media, I hate drama. No, you love it, and you promote it. So a lot of it's by design, but a lot of it's by choice. People choose to be negative. People choose to be stupid. People choose to be ignorant. There is a solid blueprint for what is going on right now in military strategy and military tactics, which are backed by military law, which also is backed by federal law. Opinions with zero solutions is hot air. Criticism without construction is hot air. You know the root word to construction? It's to build something. So if you're going to be criticizing something and you don't have any construction, which means if you don't have a solution or something that matters, and you don't know the topic, you don't know the subject, you don't know the terminology, the glossary, the index, the language, the verbiage, the anything, you just got hot air is what you got. Hot air and stale Cheetos. That's it. Maybe some people out there should try to shut up and listen. I'm in my position today. 50% of everything I talk about, probably a little more, but 50%, over half of what I talk about is because I shut up in my life and I listen to elders. I respected my elders. And I had the greatest role models in my life. My grandfather, my great uncles, my dad, my uncle, and layers of people that I served with in the military and people that I didn't serve with, but I've met along the way. Elders. What have most people done in society? You've cast away the elders because you know everything. You won't shut up long enough. You know everything. Social media makes you smart. Social media gives you intelligence. And you ain't got nothing. So, I'm going to bring back some more comments that I've heard along the way in the last 4 years. Who are you? How do we trust you? I don't know who to listen to or who to trust anymore. I only trust God. I don't trust the government. Well, since we, you, me are the government and your attitude sucks, guess what? I don't trust you either. One, because you're negative. Two, because you don't know anything. There's that. And this God that you claim that you love and trust, well, he ain't my God. Because my God raised up many of men. And those men led people to the right path. So you're not following and reading and trusting the same God I am. So you need to leave God out of your mouth. And this God that you claim that you trust is the same God in his word that says you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears and you can tell them by their fruits. Example, any of you who have ever had a raw persimmon, anyone who's ever eaten a raw persimmon, you will quickly find out, it'll turn your mouth inside out. You'll know when it's right and when it's not right. A raw persimmon. So an example out there. Some of these influencers will share these videos that are maybe 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes long. And it'll be something that's supposed to just ruffle your feathers. Which is meant to do what? Stir up the algorithm. Get the comments going, like, love, and then it blows them up. It makes them more visible. They don't care about you. They don't care about your wellness. They don't care about your mind. They don't care about your peace and your calmness and all these other things. They don't care about you. But boy, you're over there. Certain people just stewing in the comments, boy. So example, let me show you an example. There's a douchebag out there in a uniform, military army uniform. Videos gone viral. And he was talking about how he was removed and was being all these things with COVID. He roped all the Republicans in. With that nonsense in a uniform. Now he's in a video talking about the government being tyrannical. And I don't like where it's going. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wolf in sheep's clothing. All right, this person wants you to believe that the Constitution is being violated, which means laws are being violated and broken. But the dude is in a uniform. Me as a retired veteran sitting here telling you the guy is in multiple violations of military law and federal law. Let's just name them. So there's straight out the gate his oath. When you raise your right hand, you say, hey, I will obey the what? The orders of the what? Whom? The president and the officers appointed over me. But this douchebag happens to be an officer. So, but guess what? Just because he's the officer mentioned, he's still under the commander. And it says according to what? According to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Well, I can show you in all the laws and orders. That's all I do is show you where everything you've been watching is lawful. Everything. You know how you prove it's lawful? You've got to read and study yourself. That's the fruit. That's how you tell if the fruit is good or bad at the tree, but you can't even identify the tree, most of you. You don't even know what the tree looks like. Therefore, you can't find good fruit because you don't even know what the tree looks like. And this douchebag is in multiple violations. So wanting you, listen to the principle here. If he's saying the law's being broken, how can you trust him when he's breaking the law himself? He's breaking his oath. And it says according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Well, this dude is in an Army uniform, so he's breaking Army Regulations 600-20. He's breaking Department of the War Directive 1344.10. He's breaking federal law, Title 18, 2385. He's breaking the 14th Amendment. I mean, I could keep rattling off here. All the laws this dude's breaking, and wants you to see that the government's tyrannical and he's sitting there in our battle dress uniform, which is what we die in. That's a sacred uniform to us veterans because he knows people will not listen to him because he has nothing else to say. He knows people will not listen to him unless he's in the uniform. And he knows that people out there don't know anything about Army regulation, don't know anything about Department of War regulation, don't know anything about federal law. And people have blown this dude up and made him look like a freaking hero when he's violating laws. So if you want someone to, if someone's going to say, hey, they're violating the law, you probably don't want to be violating the law either. That, I'm going to say it, I can't refrain. That is how stupid people are. And you should see the comments when I commented there. Well, he's breaking this. He's breaking Title 10, Chapter 47, Articles 94 and 134, which is mutiny and sedition. That is your Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is in his oath. And then all the others I just listed. And you should see the comments. Well, he's got to get the information out. The information's already here. You don't need some dude breaking multiple laws telling you that laws are being broken. Oh my God. How did we get so freaking stupid in America? How did we get this stupid? How did we get this stupid? They're breaking the law. Well, you're breaking the law too. So, oh my God, people. Then we got a dude who used his queer status is gay. Oh, he's gay and he loves President Trump. He's on a video and he's saying that, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about chess. I'm sick of hearing about how President Trump was still president during 21 to 25. Well, if he was still president, then he effed us. Queer. All right. I normally don't mess with people's lifestyles, but since this person using queer status and President Trump and claims to be a patriot and trying to sell things, now we got to bring in the queer. Now we got to bring in the LGBTQRSTLNE. Can I buy a vowel, Pat? We got to pull it up now. This person has millions of followers, millions, and you'll have idiots still saying, "Well, I still like him though. I still like his opinions though." Misleading thousands and millions of Americans. When this is a strategic operation, we are losing lives because we sign up for it. One, we know what we're signing up for, and we know that, and we know we can take the fall, but you are to be appreciative of it. And you're still following trash. This dude is trash. And you should want to listen to a man. You should want to listen to someone with some masculinity, with some freaking testosterone. Not someone that looks like and sounds like, well, we know the look part is correct, but he sounds like he just pulled one right out of his rear end and out of his mouth. Boy. Why would President Trump do that to us? Because you're an idiot and you don't know anything about laws and orders. That's why it had to happen. Because all of a sudden, people are, I'm ready to fight. Where were you? Where were you when they were putting DEI in school? Where were you when they put a litter box in a bathroom because some kid want to take a shit in a litter box because they say they're a cat? Where were you then? God, we have gotten stupid in this country. Stupid. Where were you? Where were you in COVID? Where were you in 2020 when your employer said you had to take a shot? Where were you? Why didn't you stand up then? Why didn't you fight then? Where were you when they were trying to put this jab in your children and other people's children? Where were you? Where have you been? You been under a rock the whole time? Because that's where most of the people have been. Like this dude, but we know what he was under a rock with. He was under a rock with it. Anyway, I'm going to say that. These people cannot stop complaining enough to shut up and listen. Because they have zero respect straight out the gate, zero gratitude, zero appreciation for knowledge, because they don't possess it and they don't even know where to find it because they can't shut up long enough. These same people yell, "Drain that swamp! Drain that swamp! Drain that swamp!" Most people yelled it. To those people, it was a slogan. To me and my people, we already knew it was a plan. It was a plan. It is the plan. So if old gay dude, if old queer bait, if old... I won't say it. If he would put the right things in his mind and quit worrying about what's going in his mouth and read some military strategy and military law, this man that he claimed to support, he might just love a little bit more, especially him, old queer boy. President Trump said specifically, give them what they want. You know what he was talking about? People like old queer boy. Drama. People out there, oh boy, you still love that boy, you still love that dude, you still love the dude in the uniform. They're violating law. They don't know anything about law, don't know anything about knowledge, don't know anything about the information, military strategy, military. But we love them, their opinion, That's what people love, drama. So guess what? You want to know why it had to happen this way? Because you love drama. So we have to give it to you that way. Laws and orders require thinking. If you knew how many pages I've read alone, just me, myself alone, of military law, military strategy, military tactics, all the publications, all the manuals, all the directives, all the instructions. If you knew how much reading and studying people like me have done, you wouldn't even open your mouth. You wouldn't even open your social media up. I can put all these people in a place they don't want to. If people would listen, not because it's a versus this, so-and-so versus this, but if it came down to so-and-so versus this, most of these people wouldn't even have a platform anymore because they cannot hang. They don't want this heat. They don't want this smoke because if they really are a President Trump supporter, they should know what? His plan, his strategy. But none of this is a 5 or 10 or 30-minute breakdown. I've also heard that before. Oh, if he can't say this in less than 2 hours or an hour, he can't. It ain't that. No, that's why we're here. Mentalities like that. That same mentality is why we're here. Then you got the people out there still out there. Nothing changes till we see arrest. Oh, nothing. I'm not reading anything till I see an arrest. You're why we're here. You're why we're here. Every action that you've witnessed from November 8, 2016 to present day, every single action you've witnessed was pre-planned, and it's already 2020. Meaning, you can look back, it's already there. It's an action that was there for you. Not for you to complain, but for you to see, man, that's my validation. Oh, the best one. This is getting to the meat because we're about to get to the heart of everything. People say, well, if this was one big military operation, how can you talk about it? And why you and who are you? Well, one, if you really want to know, that's going to require shutting up. It's going to require reading. It's going to require studying. Or otherwise, you're just a waste of my time, period. But the biggest thing is again, everything you've witnessed from November the 8th, 2016, but especially January the 20th, 2017, with the oath and then the plan going into effect, everything you witnessed, everything I talk about has already happened. Meaning you can put your eyes on it, and then I can show you where the law is and where the order is, and then you're supposed to appreciate it. Going, dang, this was in law. This was in orders. Why didn't I know this? It's okay if you don't know it and you're trying to know it. But when you're out there spewing negativity, when your attitude sucks, and when you're yelling, kicking, cussing, bickering, whining, fussing, all these other things, you're not doing it. That's hot air. One, I'm a retired veteran with credentials. All right, I have a badge. All right, none of it. It's not about me in the first place, but because those questions exist, it's not about me. That'll come out down the road. And there's a bunch of me's. I'm a low man on the totem pole, first off, but there's a bunch of me's in key positions all up. Security clearances, you name it, everywhere. You don't just have to be active military, guard, or reserve. There are plenty of cases where people get voluntarily called back, involuntary called back. Also, special operations comes recruiting. See that ball cap right there? That. There's a case where you can be recruited in the civilian sector, but you got to display what? Also, civil affairs. There's all kinds of opportunities out there, not the defense contracts that President Trump's terminating, but there's some good spots that they needed, they wanted, they got, they put us here. Number two, I wrote the books. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like my delivery. I'm not here for numbers. I'm not here for status. I'm not your husband. I'm not your boyfriend. You don't have to like my delivery. You don't have to like it. But if you're receiving it in some negative way, then that's your problem, not mine, because I'm not delivering it that way. I'm here for a mission, like Tom Homan says. You don't have to like me. You can write 1,000,000 hit pieces about me. You can hate me. You can do anything. I don't care. I'm here for a mission. I'm here for you. I'm here to deliver for you. It's up to you to take what you're supposed to take, because this is a strategic and special operation, military operation, that's all backed by military and federal laws. I show you where they are, and I show you how to put them together. I wrote the books. I'm the only person with the books, the only books that outline 45-47. That's it, right here. The Midnight Rider Rides Again. This is part 1. It's a workbook. It's not a novel either, ladies and gentlemen that don't know. It's a workbook. That's part 1. This is part 2. It's a little bigger. This gets into special operations, heavy. Part 2, special operations. It teaches you to elevate your thinking. If any influencer was anybody official, which they're not, I can show you all the ones that aren't. If they were, though, they would be elevating you. They would be elevating you, motivating you, uplifting you, and they'd be leading you to things that sharpen your skills, that sharpen your thinking, that sharpen your logic, that sharpen your education. They're not doing that. 99.9% are not doing that. And again, every action that's already happened. That's why this stuff is that easy if you'll be quiet long enough. It's already happened. Now let me show you an example of what people do. I was watching Pawn Stars one night, all right, in Vegas, Pawn Stars, all right, and this lady came in with a brooch. Females wear a brooch. Some young people won't know what a brooch is, but this lady came in with a brooch. All right, I'm going to make it concise. She came in. She was asking some low dollar for it. And he goes, this is where I hate being honest. But he was being honest. He said, what you have here is a ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, and he rattled off. He said, she wanted, let's say, like $200, $300, something like that. He goes, I'll give you $15,000 for it. Then guess what she did? Oh, well, I'll take $18,000. How about $18,000? She came in asking peanuts, and then when he told her, hey, you're holding gold, then she wanted what? She wanted to up the ante. Didn't even know what she had. Had no idea what she was holding. He could have taken her to the cleaners. He could have said, yep, you know what? You want $300, here's your $400, you have a good day. That is the attitude of most people out there. You have President Trump. You have a dash right in front of you. You have a visual, you have verbal validation and visual validation daily. But you wait, you're going to wait. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is I'm going to be validated. I've already validated, but the whole operation is going to be validated in history, and you're going to know. You're going to get somewhere down the road, and you're going to look back and be like, that dude knew everything. It's not because I know everything because of a cocky situation. I know everything because I was put here in a place to give you the foundation where it gives you peace and calmness. You don't have to know everything right now yourself, like, oh, you know, this operation or this or that topic or this. But when you have the foundation, you'll have peace and calmness. You'll trust your leaders. You'll trust the people who are in command because you'll see their fruits, because you'll have their fruits in your heart, right? And just because something hasn't been solved yet, like an arrest or something like that yet, you would have the peace, though, knowing it's coming. And then you would be beneficial to your community, in your town, in your county, in your state, in your federal, because you'll apply yourself then. You'll know how to apply yourself. Prevention. Military law speaks about prevention. Prevention. See, the real fight, you're not in the real fight. You're not in the fight. Even if you're a patriot, I love you, but you're not fighting. You're the remnant. They're preparing you. We're preparing you for the real fight. The real fight's going to be maintaining and sustaining this. The battle was between the deep state and the alliance, the good alliance. All of us good military. All of us good that knows what's going on behind the scenes. Every one of us, layers of us. The battle's between us and getting you prepared for when the swamp is drained, the swamp is cleaned out, and it's visual and validated that you know all of it's gone. Income tax is gone. This is gone. That's gone. We've got to maintain and sustain because all the minds out there that don't appreciate, that hate, they hate Christianity, they hate God, they hate the Constitution, they hate everything patriotic, they hate this nation, but they still want to be here. Those are the people that we have to keep suppressed. We can't eradicate them, but we can suppress them. That's going to require you knowing what I know. and not just knowing it, putting it to work. But see, what's happened to Americans is this is the part that some by choice, but this is the part where by design. The deep state all these years psychologically manipulated you. They use all the same verbiage that I do. I've heard people say, oh, we have laws and orders. We've always had laws and orders. Fruits. The fruits, ladies and gentlemen, fruits. The laws and orders right now that President Trump's using, if you knew what the deep state had been doing, you'll know that it's a clean out. It's a resetting. We got to reset the standard. We have to reset everything. That's also why military strategies and military tactics are more important than the laws and orders. The laws and orders have got to be there, but listen to me. The military strategies and tactics are what supersedes, meaning this is what puts the barrier in there between the psychological manipulation of the deep state and how they use the terms laws and orders, but they didn't do what was prescribed on paper. President Trump's doing what's prescribed on paper. And there's a wedge there. There's a massive barrier wall there. If President Trump was a regular president, and if this was a regular presidency, enforcing laws and orders would expose the swamp and their intent and their motives and their secrecy. But the but is that it wasn't a regular presidency. And there's no way he could have walked in and done the things he's done as a regular president. And that's where the laws and the orders and the military strategies and tactics come in. All right, then you got to know your military history and foundation. The military came first in our nation. Military first, Declaration second, Constitution third. The Declaration didn't have a chance without the Revolutionary War. The Constitution didn't have a chance without the Declaration and the war. See how that works? And so many people don't even appreciate that. 68% of America can't even name the three branches of government. But the legislative branch, the executive branch, and judicial branch were all separate. They were founded in that sequence, but they're still separate from each other. We vote the first two in. We vote on the legislative, our representatives, and we vote the president in and the vice president. So the judicial branch is supposed to do what? What we voted them in to do. And when we're voting in laws and we're voting the president in to do what he campaigned on, the judicial is to do what they do. Because we voted them in. That's how that works. And so many people don't take this serious. Marbury versus Madison, 1803, the sole author of the Constitution, James Madison, goes into the Supreme Court. He has to clarify what a law looked like. Now, you think how dumb we are now. We got people who can't even name the three branches. And here's the sole author of the three branches had to go into one of the branches and tell the branch what a freaking law looks like. 1871, 1913, President Trump has, in quotes, said our country was so rich from the 1880s to 1913 they didn't know what to do with the money. That was a punch. That was a jab to the deep state. In the State of the Union just a couple of days ago, President Trump said, we've got more money than we know what to do with because of tariffs. Guess what they used from 1880s to 1913? Tariffs. But he's taking a jab and a stab at the deep state because of what they did with that in 1913. Income tax and the Federal Reserve. That's when things nosedived, was 1913 all the way to 2016. President Trump laying that fire on them, boy. In the 1880s to 1913, they had all that money. They didn't know what to do with it. You know what they did with it? They taxed the ever-living heck out of you and our ancestors, and not that long back, great-great-grandparents, not that far back. People didn't know what was going on. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Then in 1951 and 1973, very key here, 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Why? 1973, Congress unconstitutionally, which stems from 1941 unconstitutional and 1942 unconstitutional, amended the Unconstitutional War Powers Resolution Act. They made it to where a president has to declare a national emergency to use the military. They try to limit his power, limit his authority. That's not what the Constitution reads. The Constitution is an equal, joint. It says the Congress declares the war, but it says the president is commander of the Army and the Navy, which is military law. So see, well, I mean, he's the guardian of national security. You vote in the guardian of national security. It's a joint. It's not one or the other. So they try to limit that. That was unconstitutional. So I'm going to explain how we're using all those against them. I've done it before. The first thing you need to know is who's in control and who's in command. President Trump, in 2015, 4 days before he rolled down the escalator, the new law war manual was issued. A new law war manual, ladies and gentlemen. Very key. Fast forward. February 2016, President Trump was out campaigning on the trail. Obama was somewhere. Obama said, we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. Now, Obama wrote an executive order in 2009 to start the review to shut down Guantanamo Bay. 2009. So then, you fast forward, right, to 2016, and President Trump heard that, and he said, oh, by the way, we're keeping Guantanamo Bay open. That was February. April 2016, our unconventional warfare, special operations, ball cap, special operations puts out a new unconventional warfare pocket guide. It changed a lot of things in there. The word from agitation to assassination, which is a tactic that we use. All right, a lot of things in there. It says presidential findings. It's got the government in exile in there. It's got the shadow government, puppet government. All right, it's got all these things in there. That was April 2016. May 2016, the Supreme Court, out of nowhere, the more liberal Supreme Court back then, with Ginsburg and that crew, out of nowhere, they passed the Military Justice Act. They clarify that military laws and courts are separate from federal laws and courts. And if you go read about that, it streamlined the process to where a courts martial, the judge, has more leeway in it. Streamline, meaning quick trials. What did President Trump say is going to happen? Thing called what? Quick trials? Ye of little faith. (2016), all on the campaign trail. Hillary Rodham Clinton. She kept saying President Trump's temperament is not fit for president. He'll start a nuclear war with Kim Jong-un on North Korea. Where's the little fat boy been? He's been hoarding probably Christmas Twinkies because RFK is going to take him away, because we ain't heard from the little fat boy anymore. You ain't heard anything about North Korea. You ain't heard little fat boy, little short man syndrome piping off at the mouth. Where'd it go? That, ladies and gentlemen, you take your humor aside, now let's get to the realness. That was projections. That was a projectile, meaning they're projecting their guilt. They're projecting something they're probably going to do in the future. 2016 campaign trail, President Donald John Trump said, never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military, because if you find out first, guess who else finds out? This is 10 years old. And you're just now complaining out there, all ye of little faith, all of you rhinos showing your real colors out there. You're jumping ship. We didn't vote for this. Yeah, you did vote for it. You just don't even know the laws and the orders. You don't know the difference in a war and an operation. You don't know the difference. You don't know the difference in anything, because you can't even name the three branches of government. Data shows you can't. So if you can't even simply name the three branches, why does your opinion matter? It doesn't. Not till you're educated again, and you're not going to have any power until we deem so. We means the military government. President Donald John Trump, I'm going to reiterate, President Donald John Trump did not have this kind of power simply being a regular president. And if you have any appreciation for the military, if you are someone still out there hesitant about President Trump, but you love the military, shut up and listen. 45-47 is his legacy. 45-47 is his legacy. It had to be different. It had to look different. By law, it had to be different. And by law, it is different. If you'll listen long enough. The why and the how requires listening. Now, I'm going to explain how this operation was pulled off, the most biblical, historical, monumental operation on a man. You'll hear people out there like the queer boy who says, oh, well, why would Donald Trump do that to us? If he did, he effed us and the economy and all. No, because you don't know anything about law. You don't know anything about order. In 2016 and prior, when have you ever had a free life? I can show you how you have it. And you're supposed to already know this. You're supposed to already know that you've been constrained, taxes after tax after tax after tax. Unconstitutional measure after unconstitutional measure. But most Americans, because you don't know anything about anything, you don't know that the original Constitution, Article 2, Clause 1, Section 1, doesn't mention anything about term limits on the president. Because you don't know anything about our history and our foundation and our founders, but especially our sole author of the Constitution, which was one of the sole authors of the Federalist Papers, you don't know that James Madison, the sole author of the Constitution and most of the Federalist Papers, and Alexander Hamilton, one of the authors of the Federalist Papers, you don't know that those two said a president should serve like a king as long as the American people keeps voting them in. Wow. And he's the sole author of the Constitution. We're nowhere in the Constitution. This is where people don't even know the Constitution. Liberals definitely don't. They hate it. That's why they butcher it so much, because they hate it. But you, the Republicans and conservatives and quote-unquote patriots, you're not to look like them. So in the Constitution, there's nowhere. The Constitution is a framework for what Congress, it's Article 1, legislation, Article 2, executive, Article 3, judicial. It's a prescription, meaning, hey, y'all need to establish this. The Congress will establish this, and the Congress will do this. We can change anything along the way under that Constitution. If there's a law out there and we don't like that, and we say, oh, that law don't support that, we can abolish it. Real simple. That requires people going, I don't like this. And multiple people, right? The majority of people going, hey, why do we have this? Abolish it. Bingo. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the Congress is to put term limits on the president. And that's what President Trump keeps saying about the third term, the third term, the third term, the third term. But he's already in the third term. But he's not in another way, and I'm going to show you because that's the cherry on top on the end of this podcast. So most of you think that a president has 4 years, which means he can only have 8 years, which is 2 terms. That's what the drama-fed average American thinks. So instead of, we could not stop on January the 20th, 2021, we couldn't stop the whole world and say, hey, you're uneducated, you don't have any knowledge, you're all dumb, you're all idiots, you're all stupid, you're all morons, you're all uneducated. We couldn't say that. We couldn't stop the whole world and that. The other thing you didn't want to do is give President Trump 8 years straight out the gate. Because we can take over in a military government. We can take over. Some people wouldn't like it because they call that a coup. But we can take over. The military can, because we were established first. If there's a danger to national security, to all people especially citizens of America, we can do this. All right, law shows it. And Congress kept these laws intact all these years, so that's their problem if they don't like it. They did it. So instead of getting 8 years straight out the gate, there are military strategies and military tactics where we can have 4 years here, pull President Trump back using those tactics, put a military government in, put a compass around, meaning like a globe or a barrier, walls, however you want to look at it. That's a metaphor and a visual. We can put this barrier around. And no, it's not desirable. Our law of war manual talks about undesirability, which I'm going to read in a minute. It talks about the undesirability. We don't want to do it. No one wants to do it. No one wants to be here. No, it wasn't fun. The economy wasn't fun. Gas wasn't fun. Food wasn't fun. The cost of it wasn't fun. It wasn't desirable. But we all had to go through it. But if you knew that this was a military strategy and military tactic, that while we're going through this now, it's going to suck a little bit, little sacrifice. But when we get on the other side, baby, when we get on the other side, the golden age, when we get on the other side, guess what's going to happen? All of the complainers, all the doubters, all the whiners, all the fussers, all the bickers, all the queer boys, and all the traitors in uniform, guess what's going to happen? You ain't going to find them. Oh, I knew the whole time. Oh, they'll be deleting all their little bull crap. They'll be deleting that. Not for me, they ain't, though. I got it screenshot. Nope. Yep, you done messed up now. You messed up with old Rattletrap. There's going to be a wall of shame for all of you. And it ain't going to put you down, but it's going to make sure that people remember these are not influencers. They don't need to be in a position. You don't need to vote them anywhere because they didn't know what they were supposed to know when they were supposed to know it. That's what's insulting to the United States military, is that every single one of you can know what's going on right now, and you choose negativity. You choose drama. You choose hate. You choose wrong. You choose, oh, what's wrong today? Flip your script. Flip your attitude. There is a military tactic that we use 4 years in, 4 years back, 4 years in, you get 12 years. And then, guess what? When you get on the other side, it's called that quote where you've heard, I'll ask forgiveness later. We'll do it now, I'll ask forgiveness. I've heard people say, well, will people think that it was lying? No, we're not lying. We don't use lies. We're not misleading you. You can know everything that's going on. Nothing's a lie. But if you choose for it to be that, then you're choosing to be negative. You're also choosing not knowledge, because military strategies and tactics are knowledge. They elevate your thinking. It's a tactic for a reason. It's a strategy for a reason. It's to remove bad guys and gals and things for a reason. All right. So President Eisenhower is the one who established the Presidential Emergency Action Documents and the continuity of government. They go together. PEDS is short, that's acronym, Presidential Emergency Action Documents. There's 4 ways the military pairs with federal. 4. Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. Then the COD, the continuity of government. Well, continuity of governments is when there's a disaster, a catastrophic event or disaster that took place. President Trump told you over and over and over, over and over and over, over and over and over. What did he tell you? We've been invaded. We've been invaded. There's an invisible enemy. We've been invaded. We've been invaded. He told you the whole time. He wasn't talking about the border. He started talking about this long before the border ever became a thing. He started talking, we've been invaded. We've been invaded. He's talking about a foreign entity, D.C. On paper, you may think it's stupid, and you can very well easily think that. That's fine. But District of Columbia is a foreign territory to us in the military. So that's still considered foreign on paper, which is found in our law of war manual and our military laws. Foreign, a foreign entity. All right, and then you have the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, the one that was put out April 2016. It was renewed, put out again in that timeline I did earlier. It's got the military government in it, the government in exile, the puppet government. And then again, this is not the people's war. It's not your war. And that's why so many people look atrocious, because you don't have to look atrocious. That's why all these people, the dude in uniform, the queer dude, they're exposing themselves and don't even have to. They're showing their intent and motives and don't even have to. And then military law supersedes local law and other law. Now I'm going to read the undesirability clause for you. All right. And you have to go read it for yourself. It's on page 811 on the PDF portion. It's on page 783 on the paper. So there's two different things when you're looking, when you pull up the Law of War Manual digitally, you'll have a PDF on the top where you can type in the number. It's on page 811, and it's on page 783, though, on a paper form. So if you have the book, if you bought it on Amazon, it's on page 783. All right, this is undesirability. So this goes back to when people say why and why would President Trump do this, and why? Because we're cleaning out every aspect of the executive orders and national emergencies by 2016 and prior, the nations that didn't capitulate. We're cleaning all that out. The failed diplomacy of Iran, Somalia, Venezuela, and Ukraine, cleaning all that out. All right, then you have to clean out other systems. There's so many things that had to be cleaned out. To follow the money, when President Trump said follow the money, it's all these systems, all these structures, all these organizations, all the rings, all the cartels, every aspect. And that's why people need to shut up about, oh, it's taking too long. No, you're just now finding out about it, and you're feeling guilty, and you're projecting that out there because you're still doing what? You're still saying you all are taking too long. So you're still putting it in our leadership hands, and you've been where the whole time? Silent for most of it. You probably should remain silent. All right? So, military government is the form of administration by which an occupying power exercises governmental authority over occupied territory. The necessity, you want to know why it's necessary, the necessity for such government arises from the failure or inability of the legitimate government to exercise its functions on account of the military occupation, or the undesirability of allowing it to do so. Well, we're doing both of those. Listen to what that's saying. It's saying that the legitimate government for the normies out there in the target audience, that would have been Joe Biden and Kamala, January 20, 2021, which started with the military funeral. It started with a funeral. It wasn't even an inauguration. And this right here is our Law of War Manual telling you, no, what you experienced in 21, 22, 23, 24, it was not fun. I get it. The cost, the gas, the food, all the other stuff. It wasn't fun. We know this, but it was necessary for what? Drain the swamp. You yelled it. Why'd you yell it? If you don't want Joe Biden's type mentality, all the stuff they did years ago, Obama, Bush, Clinton, if you don't want that gone, why are you whining and complaining? You're the enemy. So listen to what it says. The necessity for such government arises from the failure, let's just put it in context. The necessity for such government arises from the failure or inability of Joe Biden to exercise his functions on account of the military occupation. So it's telling you right there, hey, that's why, quote unquote, Joe only had control of civil affairs. Didn't have control of the military because nowhere on paper does he have a single Title 10 or Title 32 invocation. Which, that's all your active duty, reserve, and National Guard right out the gate. Nothing. He has zero Title 10 or Title 32 invocation on paper. Nowhere. And that's what a puppet government does. They only have control of civil affairs. And that's why President Trump said in the debate, he said, why did he mess with inflation? It was 1% when I left. It jumped to 8, 9, 7, and it started coming back down. It got to 2.9 in 2024, but it was still not 1%. And it's a point that what you witnessed was the undesirability. While we were running a military government and a puppet government, we were able to do all these other things with the military. The tunnel wars. This stuff you're seeing with Iran right now has already happened. They're just now rolling it out for the normies, the target audience. But all the tunnel wars, we're talking about layers of trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking. I've got all the aircraft out in the Caribbean, but also out in the Pacific. I have layers of these aircraft on. They were showing it live when it was going on, actually going on. And you can capture all of them. There's nothing on radar now, much on radar. That's why you haven't seen me post any aircraft lately. There's a few things showing, but it's always ahead of time, and then the action comes later. That's how special operations works, ladies and gentlemen. All right? So, I'm going to read to you what a military government is, and you can just listen. A military government is a system where armed forces control a state's political, legislative, and judicial functions, often following a coup or during national instability. These regimes, frequently led by a military dictator, often replace civilian leadership to impose order but face challenges regarding legitimacy and human rights. All right? Because people are all astray and doing what people did during that time period. Now, and then a puppet government is someone who only exercises civil affairs. So there were three things consistent around Joe. Only three. Only three. It's just simple, ladies and gentlemen. There's only three things that were consistent around quote-unquote Joe to show you the whole thing was an operation. Three. Insignia. When President Trump went down on January the 20th, 2017 for his oath, the military came behind him. They had military intelligence, Judge Advocate General behind him. There was a third one added to show you what you're watching is an operation. Everything you saw around quote-unquote Joe had military intelligence, Judge Advocate General, and this one sounds like two, but it's only one command. Civil affairs and psychological operations. Insignia. On every soldier that you saw in a photo around quote-unquote Joe, it was one of those three. Plus, straight out the gate, it started with a funeral. That was not an inauguration. By Army regulations 600-25. Multiple statutes and tables in our Army regulations. You witness a funeral on January the 20th, 2021. That was not an inauguration service. So it started with the funeral, and everything in there had visuals to show you. If you found me, and if you read and studied, as a lot of people have who are buying my books. It's the #1 bestseller because of people, not because of me. We hadn't promoted it not one time. I hadn't got out on any kind of anything and promoted it. All right, on big anything. We hadn't been in a publishing house. We hadn't been in big bookstores, nothing. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon because I put it up there and the people did that. So this goes back to not one single thing that you're witnessing in the news. Not one. Listen to me. Not one single thing you've witnessed is a Democrat or a deep state doing this, and then the Republicans did this, and the deep state did this, and no. Everything you're witnessing, every single thing is President Trump in the lead. A law that he did, an order he did. Everything. Every single thing is President Trump in the lead. Everything. Remember when I used to say everything because of Southern? Well, everything. Listen, even this. You got to listen, you know. So many people are in the comments and want to comment, and I understand that, but this is important. Every single action that President Trump has taken, this proves how dumb people are. And I'm sorry. If you ain't dumb, then you ain't got to be. You got to worry about it. Don't receive it as dumb. This is just your friends and family. Every single action that President Trump has taken, guess what it is? It's an executive order with a national emergency by whom? Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama? Iran, Yemen, Venezuela, Somalia. Every single one of those, Barack Obama, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, the Iran, Executive Order 12170, November the 18th, 1979. 46-year-old executive order with a national emergency. Does that sound like an emergency to you, ladies and gentlemen? You know what that emergency was supposed to do? That emergency in 1979 was supposed to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon. In 1979! That's how dumb people are. I'm not refraining. You just have to call a spade sometimes. Iran, Yemen, Venezuela did not do what? They didn't capitulate. So they're doing what? They're paying the price for not capitulating. They did what? They stuck to their loyalty to their regime. Right? There you go. The capitulations are very key. That's where everybody missed. That's where the gay boy, the queer bait, old queer dude said, 20 people talk about capitulation and all these other things, these countries that are all involved. They are involved, you dumbass. 1 million people, millions of people following people like this. And he's misleading thousands with videos like that. We do have multiple partners. That is what makes this legacy of President Donald Trump. It's not even a legacy. It's a world legacy. I don't know how you can put it in words. We're talking about world history. He was the first president to walk in North Korea, you dumb queer bait. He was the first leader of any type to walk into the Forbidden City of China in 500 plus years. He handed the trophy in front of the emperor to the sumo wrestler. If you probably kept a lot of you-know-what out of your mouth and your rear end, and you actually were what God called you to be in the Bible, Mr. Patriot, you probably would know these things. Saudi Arabia crowning the king. Modi of India praised him. Now, the rest of the portion, when you see someone like President Xi of China say something now, this is theater. When you know what the setup was, and you know the setup is a military strategy and military law, then that's the undesirability portion to have to show up to the people who never find someone like me, who don't want to read a book. They got to see things, what did President Trump say? Give them what they want. You don't have to be the recipient of drama if you'll shut up and read and appreciate and have gratitude for military strategy, military tactics, military law that pairs with federal law. But see, they can't do that. 2021 to 2023, President Trump had these things called midterm rallies. There's no such thing as a midterm rally, people. He forecasted every single thing he was going to do in 21, 22, 23. Go back and watch his speeches. It was all over his speeches. He said, we're going to go in the cities with our National Guard. If the governors and the mayors don't like it, we're going to insist it. And if they still don't like it, guess what? I'm the president. I'm the commander-in-chief. I can make that call. Where were you people? Where were you then? All of you people, we didn't vote for this. Why weren't you yelling back then? No, we don't want you to do that. You weren't doing that then? Oh, no, you were still yelling, drain that swamp. We're finding out who the real patriots are right now. That's what we're doing. 2019, 2020, 2021, full validation of military government. You hear all these libtards out there right now all over X. They're saying, oh, President Trump's violating the Constitution. He don't have a congressional authorization to go into Iran. Yeah, he does. Yes, he does. Guess who's the only ones who's been talking about it? Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the only one who's been talking about it. I'm the only one you're going to find all over the great World Wide Web that talks about December the 20th, 2019. There's that unconstitutional War Powers Act that the Congress did in 1973 that said the president has to have a national emergency to use the military. Well, y'all jacked up there, homies. You're the ones, 1973, they're all mainly dead now, But they're the ones that put it into legislation that the president must declare a national emergency in order to use the military. Well, guess what we're doing? We're taking all their rhetoric, all their legislation, and using it on them. So you got to learn what projection is. They're projecting things that, one, most of them don't know about. The others that are actually looking like they're in positions, they're guilty because it's in legislation. President Trump, December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, like a broken, beautiful record. I've said it over and over and over. All my podcasts. Timestamp, baby. Congressional authorization came December the 20th, 2019, the same day that the Space Force was established. The Global Fragility Act, a lot of things happened on that day. A lot of beautiful things happened on that day. Section 1550. In Section 1550, guess what it specifically says, ladies and gentlemen? For those who have gone and read, they know what I'm about to say, but the ones who don't, guess what it says? It says coded temporarily. Well, it hasn't been resolved or terminated, but if it's temporary, that means it's not for future presidents, which means it's strategic. It's a pre-planned operation. It's a pre-plan for a operation, which means it's what? A congressional authorization for a pre-plan of a specific special strategic operation. It specifically says it in there. It reads it to this day. Title 50, Chapter 33. Title 50 is war and national defense. That's what? National security. Ho, ho, ho. We're about to get to that one in a minute. National security. The president is voted by we, the people, to be the guardian of national security. Whoa. Whoa. I'm about to preach here. I'm about to preach. So then, that's a national security booklet. Chapter 33 is the War Powers Act. That is unconstitutional, but because they deemed it constitutional, President Trump said, well, I'll get the authorization and I'll use it against you. Well, he hasn't verbally said that because he don't have to. It's an operation right now. We're still in it. We're still in a partial continuity of government, by the way. We're going to get to that in a minute. We're still in a partial continuity of government. But he don't have to say anything right now because we're in an operation. So, all the liberals out there, oh, he needs a congress. So, December the 20th, 2019. March 2020. March 23rd specifically. This sets up moving into a military government. This sets up to it. This leads you to it. March 23rd. The headlines read out there. March 23rd, 2020. Oh, President Trump's going to install a general in case the law breaks down. You don't install a general, ladies and gentlemen. They're there by rank. They're there by service. You don't install a general. In case what breaks down, though? In case the law breaks down? So if constitutional law breaks down, guess what steps in place? Military law, military law, military government. I bet old queer boy's loving this right now. Guess what, queer bait? It ain't for you, homie. I don't swing that way. The good Lord made me what the good Lord made me to be. I'm sure you'll eat that portion up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't allow them to screenshot that portion. Oh, God, have mercy. No. Military law. 4 days later, President Trump, Executive Order 13912, he invoked Title 10, Section 12302, 1 million reserve components to active duty. A few days later, April the 1st, no April Fools going on here. That's when the Caribbean, that's when the Venezuelan operation took place. That's when it was launched, ladies and gentlemen. April the 1st, 2020. It was just named last year. But it started. It's on archive pages. It shows all our joint partners. It labels everything. That's when it started. Where were you back then? Oh, I didn't vote for this. President Trump's going against that. Where were you back then? That's when the operation's launched. You can go see it. You can go look it up on all our command pages. The official command. You can go look it up. Where were you then? That's when it was launched. That's when all the Venezuelan drug trafficking, everything you've been seeing, all the narco subs being bought. April the 1st, 2020. After that executive order, Then you have April the 30th, Executive Order 13919. President Trump invoked Title 10, Section 12304, which requires 2 years planning, 2 years preparation by military standards. Where were you? Then you fast forward. Same year though, 2020. Move past the election because that had nothing to do with anything. That was all. It has something to do with another portion, but not with this. 2020. December the 7th, 2020. President Trump invoked a continuity government, federal mission resilience strategy, a continuity government with Executive Order 13961 on December the 7th, 2020. 3 days later, December the 10th, 2020, Executive Order 13963. The last and most recent, to this day, March the 1st, 2026, the most recent order of succession within the Department of War is still December the 10th, 2020, Executive Order 13963, which is also in our directives in the Department of War. Every president has had an order of succession with the Department of War and National Security Command except for Joe Biden. That solves everything. That alone. So that's right there in December. December the 14th, President Trump filed a court case, Supreme Court, through the Supreme Court via the state of Texas versus 7 swing states of 2020. Never before in United States history are the same swing states of this election or the same in the future election, except for 2020 and 2024. President Trump won all those 7 swing states in 2024. But he filed a Supreme Court case December the 14th, 2020. August the 18th, 2023, President Trump said the Supreme Court should take up this case on these 7 swing states. Well, how did he win them in 2024? Oh, Queer Boy, he's going to have him a time with this video if he ever sees it. I hope he don't. Well, I'd rather pour a Clorox in my eyes to think about that kind of lifestyle. January the 19th, 2025 and March 18th, 2025. On January the 19th, on the last full 24-hour day of presidency, for the normal target audience that thought Joe Biden was real, even though he got a funeral on the first day, on the last full 24-hour day of a presidency, quote-unquote Joe partially revoked the Executive Order 13961, which was the invocation of continuity government. Now, why would you wait till the last 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity government if we, one, weren't in a continuity government? Why would you wait till not January 2021, not February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, the last 24-hour day of a quote-unquote President Joe, quote-unquote Joe, terminates, partially revokes, which is a termination, revocation, partially, which means we're still half in one. Then President Trump, in March, follows up with a new executive order, adding on to Executive Order 13961, the partial revocation, and this, which means we're still in, right now, there's no full revocation, there's no full termination, we're still in it, by law. Then you have all your white flag of surrender, your occupied territory, your capitulation, your puppet government, all those terms are law war manual terms. They're not federal government anything. I'm going backwards in this podcast for a reason. They're all law war manual and law of land warfare. They're nothing federal. Old quote-unquote Joe continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies by President Donald John Trump that are deporting the migrants, taking the Panama Canal back, terminate mainstream media, funding Doge. Does that sound like somebody that they're out there saying he's a dictator, a Nazi, and all these things, but yet they continued everything? They continued everything that President Trump is now being lambasted by rhinos for. Pretty sure that just showed how stupid rhinos are. He has 0 Title 10, 0 Title 32 invocation with the military, which is National Guard, active duty, and reserve components. Nothing. Military orders are not continuous under the 1973 National Emergency. So see, the legislation that they violated and overreached and violated the Constitution when they did this amendment in 73, they made it where a president has to declare a national emergency. Well, when a president uses the military, he has 90 days. 90 days. There's 60 days, and then there's a 30-day wind down. If the Congress does not give an authorization at that 90 days, then he's violating their legislation. All right? So, what makes this interesting and awesome and fun is the fact that military orders are not continuous orders because they have to require the congressional authorization because that's what people see. Whether you think it's constitutional or not, it's not the argument right now. It's not constitutional, but right now we're using that against them. So President Trump has the authorization, but guess what? You've already heard me say it, but it's even better to hear it now that you're seeing what you're seeing. The National Guard deployed to the border the week before and the week after President Trump was seen there, February 2024. How were they there? How were the National Guard at the election polls 2018, 2020, 22, 24? If Joe Biden was president, then those military orders, they don't continue over. But there's a congressional authorization that's still active, and it all applies to everything President Trump's doing right now. Remember that temporary portion where it said it's temporary, but it's still being used? Iran, Ukraine, and Venezuela all have one thing in common. President Trump didn't issue a single one of those executive orders with the national emergencies. That's the follow the money portion of Obama, Hillary as Secretary of State, Bill when he was president, and they're married. Now they're claiming ownership of each other. My husband, my wife, you probably should be calling each other Bill and Hillary and separating yourself. At least one of you take one for the team and separate yourself, but they're not. Now they're claiming each other, husband and wife, in holy matrimony. So see, there's two things. All President Trump had to do was enforce the laws as prescribed. That's one. Two, using their psychological manipulation. That's a mouthful. Using their psychological manipulation against them by enforcing the laws as prescribed. See, if you enforce the laws as prescribed on paper, and you're the good guy, and the good team, and the good folk, then guess what it does? It exposes everybody. It exposes all their rings, all their money, all their regime, all their cartels, everything. And President Trump said in 2020, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. So that's why so many people out there, you're looking for answers. You know the old country song, Johnny Lee, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. Y'all are looking for answers in all the wrong faces and all the wrong places. Your answers are right here. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like my delivery. You don't have to like my style. You don't have to like anything about me, but I'm not your husband. I'm not your boyfriend. All right? Maybe your family member, depending on who's watching. But at the same time, this is not supposed to be one of those things where, it's all pretty and it's fun. It is fun. It can be fun. But it hadn't been pretty in a lot of other ways because we had to do it. And there were things that were going to be bumpy and not be fun. But you can make it fun knowing that, look, if you live through this, And I don't mean that in any kind of bad way. Just meaning like, if you're age, if you're old age or whatever. But you live through it, guess what? You're gonna be in a celebration mode. Chill out. All right? So the undesirability while going through it may have sucked. But after after everything's exposed, after everything is taken out, wiped out, all their rings, all their trafficking, everything, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. And it's going to still expose all the people that didn't have to expose themselves, like these soldiers, quote unquote, abusing their uniform, and then also, the rainbow warrior, the people who used God's beautiful creation and destroyed it, which we're going to take it back to. We're going to get the rainbow back because that's God's promise. All right, and all these perverted people, you can be gay and live in your household and do your thing, but you're not going to pervert the schoolhouses anymore. You're not going to pervert anything else. Parents, you got to take it back. You got to stand up, especially you parents out there. You already fight, a lot of you, but the others out there, step it up. Now it's gonna be worth it. Now watch this. This is getting to the best part. I ain't almost done, but this is the best part. Now we're gonna get to national security. We're gonna get to Iran. We're gonna get to Bill and Hillary. This is the meat of it. But this is short. You had to know all the setup again. You had to know how it's a strategy. You didn't want 8 years straight out the gate. We got military strategies and tactics that can give us 12 because of what they did was doing what? Wasn't for you. So national security. I'm going to read national security. A lot of you know what national security is, but I'm going to read it by definition because it's just one of those. National security of the United States is a collective term encompassing the policies of both U.S. national defense and foreign relations. Now, it says specifically, using diplomacy to rally allies and isolate threats, marshaling economic power to elicit cooperation, maintaining effective armed forces, implementing civil defense and emergency preparedness policies, including anti-terrorism legislation, ensuring the resilience and redundancy of critical infrastructure, using intelligence services to detect and defeat or avoid threats and espionage and protect classified information, tasking counterintelligence services or secret police to protect the nation from internal threats. Now listen to what the U.S. Constitution says. Very key. The phrase national security entered U.S. political discourse as early as the Constitutional Convention. The Federalist Party argued the civilian control of the military required a strong central government under a single constitution. Now watch this. This is key. Alexander Hamilton, who said presidents should serve as kings as long as the people voted them in. Alexander Hamilton wrote, "If a well-regulated militia be the most natural defense of a free country, it ought certainly to be under the regulation and at the disposal of that body which is constituted the guardian of the national security." Guess who the guardian is, ladies and gentlemen? The guardian, the guardian, the guardian is President Donald J. Trump. The guardian is the president. You voted for it. Yes, you did. You voted for it. You voted for it. It's best you learn what's actually taking place is awesome. So see, national security. This is very key. The national emergencies that Congress made the president have to declare in the 1973 War Powers Resolution Act opens up 100+ statute powers to manage the crisis of the national emergency being declared. Why are you declaring a national emergency if there's not a crisis? Well, there you go. And I've shown you that there's 51 national emergencies open right now. From 1979 to present day, there's 51. Every 51 have what invoked? The IEEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, which is what the SCOTUS just did what? Violated the law. They overreached. It was a judicial overreach. It was one little section that they ruled on. It wasn't the whole IEPA, as President Trump calls it. It's not the whole act. It was one section. And that's where people lost their minds, especially liberals. It looked atrocious. It's one little section. It wasn't the whole thing. But it's this right here I'm about to expose how they just did a judicial overreach. But it's to wake you, the people, up to know that we vote our representatives in, legislative branch. We vote the president in, executive branch. The judicial branch is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So it's appointed by the executive and confirmed by the legislative. Therefore, we vote those first two in the sequence of which who writes the laws, legislative. The executive enforces the laws. The judicial interprets. Well, they're only to interpret what we want in law. Who we want is the guardian. That's where you, Americans, have to sharpen your skills. You have to sharpen your education. Come on, people, this is not difficult. In the national emergencies, one of those powers is called regulating commerce. Regulating commerce. What did the national security definition talk about? Economic power and stability. Economic. And then regulating commerce, that is that. So it's a emergency power that the president uses to control that foreign entity. And what has President Trump told you? What did he say in the State of the Union? He said all these nations are keeping the same deal we made because they know I can even be worse on them. There's other tariffs that President Trump can use that can tariff all the way up to 50%. They're happy with the 10% and the 15% because he could be worse. And he just basically said, all of you with the Supreme Court, you just wasted your time. You just exposed yourself to the American people. And then also President Trump appointed some of these. You shouldn't be mad at them from that angle. You should be seeing the principle in it. The president's showing you, I put these people here. The liberals out there say, that's your people that voted against. They voted against the man who put them there. Has nothing to do with anything. It's showing you that President Trump will go against the very people that he nominated, saying you didn't uphold the law. It ain't about me versus you and who put you there. It's about the law. It's about what are you tied to? What's behind the scenes? President Trump, this whole operation is to put people on a platform and give them exposure and expose them. This is an operation. We're still in a continuity of government. And this is where people have zero respect, zero appreciation, and zero gratitude for military first strategies and tactics. But then, law. It's an operation. So this is the meaty portion that's so awesome. So 2021 to 2025, not one single tariff was terminated by quote-unquote Joe and the administration. For the people that thought Joe was real, not one tariff was terminated from 21 to 25. They displayed to the people that 21 to 23 that Joe was a Democrat president with a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate. They couldn't terminate a single tariff. It's an emergency power, ladies and gentlemen. If the national emergency was bad and a Nazi and a king and a dictator, all they had to do was terminate it. It's this simple. People are this dumb. People are this lazy. People are this complacent. It's this easy. SCOTUS overreach, SCOTUS abuse. Again, legislative, executive, we vote them in. Now I'm going to show you where they overreach. You got to listen. This is where you hadn't heard this yet. This is a new nugget for you. Been saving it for this appointed time. Now this is what's important, because President Trump said in the State of the Union, he specifically said, I don't have to go back to Congress. The authorization's already there. I'll show you where that authorization. He already has the authorization. It's up to people to go read and go, oh my gosh, I said that he don't and he does. Well, yeah, you did. A lot of them out there saying he don't and he does. And then he also said some other things there. He talked about national security. It's my duty as a president. It's what he said. National security. Well, you got to know what national security is again. The economic stability, economics. And then also, what are these powers that Congress deemed with national emergencies? It gave the president what? The power to do 100 plus statute powers. Tariffs are one of them. The IEPA is one of them. The International Economic Emergency Powers Act. Listen what it says, Emergency Powers Act. Now, this is what's awesome about it. You just witnessed this. Every patriot, everybody. If you're living, breathing, walking, talking, and you're paying attention to what's going on right now in the world, you just witnessed this. President Trump just scorched the Supreme Court, and then also you got to know what's in these laws, in these executive orders. So Ukraine, Obama had 3 executive orders in the month of March in the year 2014 alone. 3 with Ukraine. One of those was in December 2014. So 4 total executive orders in the whole year 2014, which is going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about that. But then 3 of them in the month of March. One of those declared an emergency. But guess what it says in it? It's got a unique clause in there. It says unusual and extraordinary threats. Now watch this. I'm going to read the definition for you because it's got to be political and correct and not slang and then old Jonhson slang. A standard national emergency grants the president immediate access over 100 plus statutory powers to manage crisis. However, declaring an emergency with the specific verbiage of unusual and extraordinary threat specifically triggers the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEPA, authorizing powerful foreign policy and economic sanctions. Scope of power. While a general emergency might unlock powers for domestic actions, deploying troops, building facilities, the unusual and extraordinary phrasing is specifically required to invoke the IEPA. Oh, man. Roasted. The unusual and extraordinary language is the legal trigger for the president to freeze assets, restrict financial transactions, or impose tariffs. This is like the good version of the Joker when the Joker's laughing. Oh well, you know what? I gotta say my say, and I gotta just put it in there for my sergeant, the bracelet that I wear. It sucks to suck. This is so perfect. Then you got your national security strategy. Every president has had an order of succession with the National Security Command Council, except for quote unquote Joe. So how can he meet with the Joint Chief of Staffs if he don't even have an order of succession with him? The most recent national security strategy, if you go to the archives of the national security strategies, guess which one it is? 2017. Where's quote-unquote Joe's from 2022? Oh, that's right, because 2021 to 2025 never existed. President Trump told you this December the 2nd, 2025, with a post. There's 2 different narratives going on right now. The drama narrative for the target audience that still needs to see it play out, and then the actual military strategy, military tactics, laws and orders if you want to know what's going on. So, quote-unquote Joe was recently in a video just a couple days ago. It was only like 2 minutes long, which if he was real, and he's not, but for the people that thinks he is, that's about all he can go. In this video, he's confirming his trips to Ukraine. Why? Why would quote-unquote Joe be coming out right now on a video talking about his trips in 2014 specifically to Ukraine? What has Derek Jonhson been talking about? Who's the only one who's even had the timeline for the Ukrainian events in Russia with the laws and the orders? This guy? I know, braggadocious. Oh, I know, he's so cocky. Oh, gosh, Derek Jonhson, that guy's cocky. He gets up, he gyrates his hips on the screen. Oh, he's losing his mind. I'm the only one who's got the breakdown. It's all in the books. #1 bestsellers, baby. I mean, you know, I guess I mean, you know, if I'm being braggadocious, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for my DNA. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, grandparents. Thank you, lineage. Thank you so much for the DNA. You know, it all trickled down to me, and I got it all. I mean, you know, oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause it get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. Well, I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. Thank you, Matt Davis. So, old Joe, quote unquote Joe, is recently on a video confirming 2014 trips to Ukraine. Wow, that is what a timing that is, because of Bill and Hillary and Epstein and Putin and Iran and Ukraine and Russia and Somalia. All these executive orders, Venezuela, Smartmatic, Dominion. You see where we're going here? Yeah. 2008 to 2012. Guess who was not the president of Russia? The leader of Russia, not the president, but the prime minister and the president. Two different terms there. Guess who was not in control of Russia from 2008 to 2012? That would be Putin. He wasn't in control. 2010, in the middle of that, guess who was in photos with Putin? Smiling and grinning and cutting up and talking. Hillary Clinton and Putin in 2010. What did President Trump say on his tweets that you can go back and look up on X? What did he say about Uranium One? He said Uranium One was the biggest scandal in United States history. Uranium One. $145 million paid to the Clinton Global Initiative. What did Hillary just confirm in her little subpoena the other day? What term, what organization was brought up? The Clinton Global Initiative? Uh-oh. 2014, Joe Biden, as vice president, made 7 trips in 7 months on your taxpayer dollar to Ukraine. His son was working there. John Kerry, Mitt Romney, and Nancy Pelosi's kids were working there. All right. Obama, in March 2014, had 3 executive orders with Ukraine alone. One of those declared the national emergency with what? Unusual and extraordinary threat verbiage in it, all right, which we just showed you automatically invokes the IEPA. In December 2014, 4 executive orders in the year 2014. Obama, another executive order with Ukraine. He also had executive orders, 2 of them. One was an invocation, one was a termination of Russia, nuclear weapons, sanctions. So at simultaneous, we have Russia with nuclear weapons. All right, he terminates that. And then you have Ukraine that no one knew and no one had heard of until we confirmed this, military confirmed this, that they do have bioweapons there, nuclear facilities. All right. So you see what they were doing there? They were playing the cat and mouse, and they were making these 2 people, right? But he terminated the one with Russia. He didn't terminate the ones with Ukraine. Okay, so that's very important, because in 2014, Victoria Nuland, who was working for the Obama administration at that time, did what? She's the one caught on tape, and it was verified that it was her. She said, F-U-C-K, F the European Union. That's not who they want to be talking about. That's supposed to be their people. She also talked about the $1 billion. So she got the $1 billion. She was the one that secured the $1 billion that Joe Biden was asked about back then. And he was in a conversation or a campaign or something. You know, he was in a speech, and he was just good old boy talking. And someone said, "What happened?" He said, "They fired the SOB." This was Joe Biden saying that. He said, "We're going to fire the prosecutor. If the prosecutor's not removed from this, blah, 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 blah." Threats. He won't get their $1 billion. So the $1 billion was the insurance fund. So that's like they call it the quote-unquote defense budget for Ukraine that Victoria Nuland secured. F-U-C-K, the EU. Joe made 7 trips in 7 months. Obama's executive orders, the national emergency, the verbiage, the Russian executive order, your 2010 uranium one, your 2008 to 12, Putin wasn't in control. All this. And then 2014, they had one election of the 2 rounds, and then they got the leader in, and then Obama called him to thank him a few days later. See how that all happened in 2014? Now fast forward to 2018. We, the United States of America, President Trump is in place. He removes us. He says we're leaving the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Range Treaty with Russia. If you go read that treaty, ladies and gentlemen, you would think that a treaty would be a good thing, but when it says, if you read this treaty, the removal of that treaty promotes a thing called MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction, which is it's called a Nash equilibrium, which means it's actually nuclear peace. Because if 2 nations, it says if one nation attacks you with a nuclear weapon, you have the right to retaliate. And it won't be called retaliation, it would be defense. All right, so that would make 2 people not want to fire at each other. So what was the treaty for? Think about it. All right. So that was 2018. We left that. Also, July 16, 2018, right before that, President Trump was handed a soccer ball by Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland. You know who made that meeting possible, ladies and gentlemen? General Paul Vallely. Who have I been on podcast with? Thanks to Buddy Brad and others. General Paul Vallely. He made that meeting happen. And President Trump's validated all these generals in multiple ways, if you'll just listen. 2018. All right. Then you fast forward to March 2022. You have Victoria Nuland under oath March the 8th, 2022 with Marco Rubio. Oh, don't you know that name? Marco Rubio. And he asked her, are there biolabs and weapons in Ukraine? All throughout 2021, they told you, the people, this is all over news. This isn't mainstream. That's a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theories and all this other, that's all false. That's all fake. Victoria Nuland, March the 8th, 2022, under congressional oath, said, yes, but we're afraid the Russians are going to get them. The next week, Tulsi Gabbard commented on it. All during that week, Tulsi. What did Mitt Romney call her? All kinds of things, and said she's lying. You don't use that kind of language. You don't call someone a liar. That is so immature, especially if you're over a certain age. You don't call someone a liar. You know, that is a direct projection that they're hiding something. Well, his kid was working in Ukraine with Hunter, with Nancy Pelosi's kid and John Kerry's kid. So see, it ties to the money. He's sitting there a week later saying that was false. After one of the Democrats, liberals, under the 2014, the one who secured the $1 billion, even though I know it's not real, but for the people that don't know that, they thought Victoria Nuland was working for the Joe Biden administration in 21 to 25, under oath in 2022, sitting there saying that, yes, they do have biolabs. And Mitt Romney the next week saying that's all false. See what they were showing you, the people? They were showing you all that you got to get to principles. You go, wait, isn't Mitt Romney actually supposed to be the polar opposite of that? Well, supposed to be. All right, so that was 2018 and 2022. And what did they say? That Russia invaded large scale, full scale, February 2022. The war started February 2014. Go to Wikipedia, it tells you when. February 2014, not 2022. But they try to do what? Say, oh, it's large-scale operation now. No, it started in 2014. The war started in 2014. The Russia-Ukrainian War, 2014. But then guess who didn't play in the World Cup of Soccer, the FIFA World Cup of Soccer in 2022? Russia. You see what the soccer ball, you see, now it means something bigger than what it is. See, it's always meant that. I've broken this down before. But quote-unquote Biden used Article 5 during the time period of his whole quote-unquote, all of his debates. Ukraine's not a part of NATO, ladies and gentlemen. Why is he quoting the NATO Constitution? They're not a part of NATO. So Article 5 is the article that says one attack on one nation is an attack on all. They're not a part of NATO. They were showing you that Ukraine is a money laundering nation. That's where they had a lot of their operations, to follow the money. No one was listening, but you're about to listen because this ties into Bill and Hillary. So 2010 was the Uranium One scandal. $145 million. That's when Hillary was posing with Putin. Well, if you go back and look, that Obama had these 4 executive orders in a national emergency with the unusual and extraordinary threat with Ukraine, but he terminated the one with Russia. Who was their allegiance to? They played Putin and Russia for a fool. So who had every reason to capitulate to President Trump? That's what the soccer ball was, capitulation. July 16, 2018, capitulation. Hey, I wasn't in charge from 2008 to 2012. I wasn't in charge. It wasn't me. I did meet with her and da-da-da-da, but I wasn't in charge. Every reason to capitulate. Now watch this. You'd think, now what the heck does Bill and Hillary subpoena with Epstein have to do with that? Well, because who was Secretary of State during that time period? Hillary Rodham Clinton. All right, now watch this, ladies and gentlemen. Now this is where people don't understand principles, but if you love principles and you're trying to learn principles, you're trying to sharpen your skills, watch this principle. So a subpoena. If you got subpoena to let's just have some fun here. If this was the O.J. Simpson trial and you got subpoenaed to it, then they're going to ask you, hey, did you see O.J. Simpson do this? Did you see O.J. Simpson do that? Did you know O.J. Simpson was a this or that? Did you know that then they might ask you, what's your relation to O.J.? Like that. Now watch this principle here. This is where people don't listen. So supposedly since 2016, after President Trump upset Hillary Clinton in the election, after that, they've been on social media, quote unquote, yada yada, but nothing serious, nothing where they're like creating what they used to do, which shows you it's an operation as well. But nothing like before. Nothing before when they were all involved in this and that and going here, speaking here, talking that. They ain't been. There's been no headlines showing where Bill and Hillary are talking here and they're building momentum and this, that. There's been no talk of Hillary running again. There's been no talk, nothing like that. All right? So, by definition, they've been retired. Right? Because they're not doing anything. They've showed Bill in an ice cream shop and a coffee shop. They've shown all this for theater purposes. But for the normie and target audience out there, they're not really active. They speak here occasionally, but nothing major. Right? So they're retired. Okay? And so you had Jeff Sessions and Eric Holder and Merrick Garland. You had all these people. They got subpoenaed too. They wrote in their depositions. Some of them got to write in and say, I didn't know anything about it, nothing like that. Right? They were subpoenaed. They did what they were supposed to do. Only one of them, they said, has Parkinson's, can't show up. That's theater as well, but for the people who don't know that, all right, we'll go with that. All right? They all made their deposition. So why did Bill and Hillary delay their deposition when they're retired? What's keeping them from doing that? And if Hillary and Bill were truly about these victims, even though it's theater, ladies and gentlemen, don't react, right? Don't react. It's all theater for the people who are patriots and know the laws and orders and what I talk about, the operation. But for the target audience and the normies out there, if they were about the victims, why didn't they do what they were supposed to do by law? We're talking about lawyers here. We're not talking about regular people. We're talking about lawyers who practice law. If it's about the victims, the hell with it. It don't matter if the Republicans ran a bad operation. Y'all did this the wrong way and this was unprofessional. But doesn't matter. You got subpoenaed by law. you're to do what the law says. You're a lawyer. You're supposed to know this. Why did you delay? Why did you wait from September 2025 to February 2026? Why did you have your people say, oh, well, the scheduling issues? This is what was written, scheduling issues. For retired people who claim they're all about these victims, then they got hit with contempt. We're going to hit you with contempt if you don't show up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what contempt of court is, you might want to go look that up. So the first thing that Bill Clinton says right out the gate on his X that he's hardly ever on, he shares a few things here and off and that. But there's a video already, ladies and gentlemen. Do you see how transparent this is, first off? Every action has a video that quick right after it. Did you see any of that in 2016 prior? If you're over 40 years old, you never saw transparency like this in nothing. You never saw quick answers, quick responses, quick everything. Like it's all theater somehow. Like it's all been pre-planned somehow. Like, oh, they delayed, and then bam, they got contempt, and then we show up, and then they bitch and whine and complain, but then boom, they got a video, and he's sitting there all formal, and he's saying, I did not do anything wrong. Don't that sound familiar? First off, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So get out of the drama part. Let's go to the principle part here. The first thing out of Bill's mouth is, I didn't do anything wrong. Bill. Let's just say Bill was real. And let's say old Derek, little old country boy, little old cowboy, not a lawyer, but knows more laws than most lawyers. Let's say a little old cowboy here got to sit with Bill and say, Bill, Hillary, you guys are lawyers. You were the president of the United States of America, bro. You just got subpoenaed to do with Epstein. The questions were about Epstein, not you. The questions were all about Epstein. Why are you putting out a statement and the first thing out of your mouth is you didn't do anything wrong? I thought you were being subpoenaed for Epstein. You weren't under court. You're not under trial. You're not being questioned right now. Epstein's being questioned. Why is the first thing out of your mouth, I didn't do anything wrong? Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching a movie. This is all pre-planned. It's all strategy. Remember President Trump? Oh, the temperament of president, because you'd be in jail? It's all pre-planned, ladies and gentlemen. Learn the principles behind all this. It's not about the Clintons, if it is about the Clintons. Come on, people. It's real simple. Iran is not a war. Now we're going to Iran. It's not a war, ladies and gentlemen. Executive Order 12170, 1979. I'm going to brag a little bit. I wasn't born yet. That executive order with the national emergency that was supposed to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon was signed before I was born and declared before I was born. Every action that President Trump has taken is something to do with Obama or Jimmy Carter. The two worst presidents in the history of presidents of all countries. Obama, if you go back to President Trump, if you have Twitter or X, now called X, formerly Twitter, and go to President Trump's profile, then click the search bar and type in Iran. He's been saying this way back. You can find one or two posts where he hardly has any likes on it. It's got like 22, 30, 40. Back when the most popular man on the world, in the world history books, baby, has just a few likes on a post. Talking way back yonder about Iran. And President Trump specifically called out the $150 billion and the $1.8 billion in cash to Iran, and how it's going to build their nuclear facilities, etc., etc., etc. Obama's brotherhood, you name it. There were people along the way, reporters from the deep state media, before it got taken over by a military government, 47 United States Code, Section 606, all right, which is part of those national emergencies. And the right people prescribing the law as prescribed. The mainstream media corrected President Trump that it was not $150 billion. It was only $1.8 billion. And President Trump said, no, it was $150 billion and $1.8 billion. President Trump called this out a long time ago. So he's right about everything because of what? It's a military operation. Not because he's president. It's because it's a military operation. We have military strategies and tactics. Military government. We did the 12 years versus the 8. Real simple. Now, on Obama's archive pages, you know, they're supposedly building a library for Obama in Illinois, right, Chicago. President Trump keeps talking about how it's disastrous. And in these archives by Obama, this deal was signed in late 2015, and it was implemented, I think, January the 16th, 2016. This deal was supposed to be a 15-year deal, meaning we'll review it in 15 years, which 15 years on to the signature date was 2015, so that'd be 2030. In his archives, in his whole deal, in the writing, it says that the Iran uranium enrichment was to go down from 98% to 3.67%. 3.67%. It said Fordo, one of the locations, was to have 0% of anything. No percent whatsoever. The International Atomic Agency, last June, when we bombed the heck out of the facilities to begin with, said that they were up to 80%, and Fordo had the most of the percentage. President Trump's right again. And not because he's president. It's a military operation. The other thing is women and children. The Iranian women and children have been suppressed, oppressed, and controlled. If you have a problem with that, you're the problem. You're an enemy, and you know nothing about what you're supposed to know about. In the 1970s, before this regime took over, women were in dresses, they were in style, they weren't having to wear burqas, none of that. In 2017, Saudi Arabian women, now we're jumping to Saudi Arabia, but while we're on this subject, Saudi Arabian women, where you at, ladies? Women were not allowed until 2017 in Saudi Arabia to get your driver's license. And now we have Republicans jumping ship. We didn't vote for this. Yeah, you did. Because you're dumb, you're ignorant, stupid, lazy, and complacent, and you know nothing about laws, orders, but you definitely know nothing about military strategy. You don't know what's good because you don't even know what the tree looks like. You all claim to be Christians, you all claim to trust God, but you know nothing about the God you trust. You know nothing about the Bible. You know nothing about it. All of you people out there talking about Israel. 200 jets were used in this one operation. Israeli jets. There's all the money that you whine and complain about this whole last 2 or 3 months and the last year or so. You've been whining about Israel and oh, Netanyahu and this, that, and other. You know nothing about peace. You know nothing about military operations. You know nothing about protecting women and children. You should be deported. You should be deported. You should be stripped of everything American. Everything. You should not even be allowed in this nation. You ought to be glad that President Trump is president, and he knows you don't know, and he knows you're dumb, he knows you're ignorant, he knows you're lazy, he knows the American people didn't know what was going on lawfully, and when the income tax is removed and all these other things, you won't be whining and complaining at that point. Oh, no, you'll be, oh, I'm the biggest President Trump. Yeah. Jerusalem. President Trump declared Jerusalem capital of Israel way back in 2017. All of you Israel haters, where were you then? Where were you Republicans then that are jumped ship with President Trump? You weren't yelling then that you, oh, I'm not voting for this. Oh, why are we doing this? You weren't doing that then. You're only doing it now because you know nothing about laws and orders and strategies, and you think we're going to war, and it's not a war. It's a strategic operation, and the laws and the orders show it, and every single action by President Trump was by an executive order with a national emergency that Obama or Jimmy Carter declared. It's their failed quote-unquote diplomacy, but it wasn't diplomacy. It's their regime. They were protected. They started these wars. They were never in them. They were never injured. They were never harmed because they are the enemy. President Trump has been the most transparent person. Not only has he been the most transparent, but every action, there is a video or there's some kind of video, whether it be long or short or a post, quick, the most transparent. That shows you this not only an operation, but it's also a resetting of the standards of what the president's supposed to look like, the vice president, the Congress, the military. The War Powers Act 1973 is unconstitutional, but there's a congressional authorization, and that's December the 20th, 2019. And we're using all of their stuff back on them. We're cleaning out their swamp with their bullcrap. All President Trump has to do is enforce the laws and orders, and it exposes the swamp. Kind of like Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you saw her comment today. We didn't vote for this, and this is blah, blah, blah. She was attacking Laura Loomer, and we didn't vote for this, and you need to go sign up in the military. A woman who's never been in the military telling another woman who's never been in the military that she needs to sign up for the military. That is hypocrisy. That is gaslighting and manipulation. That's also showing all the people in Georgia, you little southern daisies and you little country boys over there in the South who don't know much ado about anything, about laws and orders. You need to re-educate yourselves. You need to listen and know who you're voting for moving into the future. I'm not going away. This is not going away. The education and re-education. You've got to dump all the drama. You have to dump gaslighting, manipulation, and drama. All these people out there, they want a name, they want a face. So all the law war manual terms, verify. President Trump said in October 2024, we're an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation starts November the 5th, and the Great Restoration starts January the 20th. Liberation, restoration. Restoration, ladies and gentlemen, is a military government term. It's found in the law of land and warfare. It's all military government related. Occupied country. He told you specific. President Trump, your president, told you we're in a military operation at the border. He told you at the speech in Madison Square, which is the one I just talked about. He's told you all along the way we're in a military operation. We're in a military occupation. We're in a military government. We're in a continuity government. His laws show it. The orders show it. The actions show it. People have zero appreciation for the military strategies, military tactics. You have zero appreciation for retired military. You have zero appreciation, zero respect, zero gratitude. Zero. The knowledge is there. The orders are there. The laws are there. The tactics are there. The strategies, they're all visual. They're not secretive. It's all here. Then abandonment. This proves also. So you have President Trump, October 24, telling you, hey, we're an occupied country, soon no longer. He said soon no longer, but he said what? Restoration starts. He didn't say it finishes. He said it starts on January the 20th. He didn't say it finishes. Well, the day before was the partial revocation of the continuity government. So partially revocated means we're moving half out of it. We're on our way. Then you had, in 2025, President Trump. In February 2025, there was a reporter asked President Trump about a puppet government and a capitulation with Russia. Those are law of war manual terms, ladies and gentlemen. They're not federal government anything. Validation. September 2025. You had President Trump sitting with the Turkish president 3 different times. He said, he remained my friend while I was in, he paused. He put an emphasis on the word he was about to say, while I was in exile. He said, while I was in, pause, exile. He said that 3 different times. Government in exile. It's a military government. So, it really is that simple. So now I'm going to read the abandonment. This shows you right here that it's a cherry on the top, and this is not the very cherry, the last cherry, because I got that one coming up here in a minute. In the Law War Manual, page 809 on the PDF, and it is page 781 on the actual page, if you read in the Law War Manual. So all throughout July to January, so July 2024 to January 2025, all you saw was Kamala. You saw old Biden come out, no, I'm not running anymore. First time in U.S. history that a president had to go through two different debates. Would have been two different strategies, which not the case, but for the target audience. And they showed old Kamala the whole time. Now, if you go to Wikipedia as we speak, go to presidential transition. Guess what it says? It says that Kamala signed off on the transition. Kamala wasn't the president, ladies and gentlemen. What did Don Jr. put up on a post back in 2021? He put a post up. He showed all the presidents who started their term, ended their term, started their term, ended their term. What did Don Jr. put up? That, and then the last one was Joe Biden, and then it showed President Trump's face. That Joe would start it, President Trump would end it. Visuals. From July 2024 to January 2025, they showed Kamala. Now the Wikipedia says that Kamala signed off on the transition, and the next day Joe Biden approved it. She wasn't the president. Now watch this. If you go to mainstream media, The Guardian and The Hill and Yahoo and all these people, there's headlines that read, specifically, you've seen me post it. There's headlines that read that Joe Biden abandoned BC. Joe Biden abandoned people. Joe Biden abandoned. The word abandoned. Abandoned. Now I have showed you every way to Pluto and back, or whatever you believe in out there. I've showed you every way that the military government is there. It's been invoked. We're in it. We've been in it. It's a military operation, military occupation, military government, continuity government, government exile, public government, everything, military strategies, military tactics, irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, backed by laws, executive orders, proclamations, etc. The visuals there. I have the #1 best-selling books. They're all in the chronological order. You can't argue it. If you argue it, then you're put the word in there. We have a colonel that is hailed as one of the gurus of all military law. His name was William Winthrop. You can call him Bill, because everybody calls them Bill, the Williams Bill. All right. And Colonel Winthrop was this guru of military law. And he's got a publication that's 1,127 pages that most people are not going to read, but they'll call me BS, and they'll say that I'm all these other things, and I'm like, well, I'm actually retired military, and I'm in a unique position with a badge, with my Department of War credentials, but okay, whatever. You've never even read a single word from a single sentence from a single paragraph of a single law, and it's all bullcrap. Okay. 1,127 pages called Military Law and Precedents. Guess what it says? The status of military government continues from the inception of the actual occupation till the invader is expelled by force of arms or himself abandons the conquest, or till under a treaty of peace the country is restored to its original allegiance or becomes incorporated with the domain of the prevailing belligerent. side with the mainstream media, that the normies and the target audience thinks they're the evil still, they're still evil, and why would they be writing an article that says, oh, Joe Biden abandoned office, Joe Biden abandoned D.C., he abandoned everything. What was the general doing on Fox News last night talking about capitulations? Oh, there you go, a general. Nobody wants to listen to the military, though. President Trump said December the 2nd, 2025, in a post, he said that from 21, he said all of Joe Biden's executive actions, legal documents, and pardons are hereby terminated. Now, for the target audience, they're still going to hear that. Well, they're saying that Joe Biden was real, but he terminated. No, that's for the timestamp in the moment, because they're building people up. They have to ease this on everybody because this is going to be massive. It's going to be awesome, but it's massive that we pulled off a military government without it being called a coup and all these other things. It's not against the law. It's all in law. It's nothing wrong with it. It's the old saying, like I said at the beginning, we're going to do this. We'll ask forgiveness later if you got a problem. But if you got a problem with eliminating all the corruption that we eliminated, you might be one of them. But President Trump on December the 2nd, 2025, that post was very key, massive validation. Right? All executive actions, legal documents, and pardons terminated. Then he went on to say a key word, though. It was 3 words, but it says no legal effect. Well, in Latin, for law purposes, in Latin, that means never existed. No legal effect in Latin, in law, means never existed. Which is why the auto pen, quote unquote, none of it was real, ladies and gentlemen. That's timestamp proclamation for when you get down the road and all this looks like a movie. When you get down the road and there's complete validation of Derek Jonhson, and it's not about me because this is about 1, humanity. 2, it's about our military. 3, it would be about President Trump and the generals and the admirals all together on the same playing field. Then the world leaders and the leaders together. And then all the secret military, special operators, special operations, etc., that all of us combine. So it's not about me. What I say that to say is that it is validation, because when you get down the road and you see all this is completely validated, for history's sake, because the dash is his legacy, then that's going to be a proclamation along the way. And when you get back and you look at it like you're looking down on an airplane, and you're looking down at the field down below, and you can see everything, then it's going to make sense, all those notches. And it was for the target audience. It wasn't for you, the patriot. If you know the laws and orders, it ain't for you. It's only validity for you. You're January the 20th, 2021. All these things are, and there's multiple things that you've seen in my books. I mean, I can't name them all, but these are the biggest. January 20th, 2021. That was an Army regulation funeral for quote-unquote Joe. The 3 cannons at Arlington is not a 21-gun salute. It's not. They've never showed the cannons in the first place at Arlington on any time on January the 20th in any inauguration history. They've never shown the cannons at Arlington. They're in the National Capital Region. 4 of them. They're wanting to commission an officer present. That's also a violation of Army Regulation 600-25. There's always to be a commissioned officer. The National Guard turned their backs on the motorcade. We always salute a moving flag and the Commander-in-Chief. All right? There was no review of the troops. There were so many things that was in multiple violations. But then when he raised his right hand, violating the 20th Amendment of the Constitution, 11:48 a.m. It's supposed to be 12. If you go to Melania's documentary, I'm not trying to ruin it for everybody. If you haven't seen it yet, but Melania's documentary, not only did they show the 45-47 zoom in on a car, the front license plate, but also she says, my husband, we could not do anything until 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 20th Amendment. The presidents cannot do anything. Why is that an emphasis in Melania's documentary? When the president raises his right hand, he takes the oath. When he says the final words of the oath, Dum ba da dum bum bum, bum ba da dum bum bum, bum ba da dum bum bum, bum ba da dum bum bum. Four flourishes, ruffles. On the fourth ruffle, the fourth flourish, fourth ruffle, the fourth simultaneous Hail to the Chief start to play and the 21 gun salute in the National Capital Region. That did not take place on January the 20th, 2021. You heard Hail to the Chief. Where was the 21 gun salute? They showed 3 cannons at Arlington. That is a funeral. The 21 gun salute, the official presidential salute battery, the Old Guard, the 3rd Infantry Regiment was at Joint Base Andrews with President Donald John Trump, a red carpet rollout. The media told you that's the official presidential salute battery. The media told you that's the Old Guard. The media told you that's the 3rd Infantry Regiment. The 2018, 2020, 22, 24 elections proves everything. Military orders are not continuous orders. How were the National Guard at 22 and 24 elections? On a congressional authorization from President Trump way back in 2019. Come on, people. Joe Biden, quote unquote, did not have a single Title 10 or Title 32 invocation anywhere. The 7 swing states, I already talked about that. He had a recent post. President Trump put up a recent post in the last week that showed the 7 swing states of 2020. He's already won those in 2024, but the 2020 is the one he filed the lawsuit on. Bingo. April to December 2024, President Trump met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times at Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower. In the 2020 debate, he said, it was you, Joe. It was you who recommended the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. It was you, Joe, who told Obama about the Logan Act. Title 18, Section 953, the Logan Act. That is private correspondence with a foreign leader. It in Mar-a-Lago, a private establishment. It in Trump Tower, a private establishment. Wasn't President Trump supposed to be a former president in 2024? So the Democrats and the libtards had full evidence, and you witnessed it, the whole world witnessed it, President Trump meeting with 12 foreign leaders 13 times at private establishments, but there was not one utter, not one mention of President Trump breaking the law. Oh, he's a felon. He's got 34 counts of felon. Not one mention of President Trump at the border of Texas in February 2024 with the troops down there, and he's saying it's a military operation. He's supposed to be a former president, and he's standing in a military operation at the border. That would have been election interference. That would have been a breach of national security. It would have been sedition. It would have been obstruction. It would have been espionage. It would have been spying on another operation. I mean, you can name everything here. And the Democrats didn't say a word about him being at the border as a former president in a military operation, military, everything. The National Guard deployed the week before and the week after. He's standing there with the governor and the adjutant general of Texas. The governor reports to the adjutant general reports to the governor unless what? The National Guard are federalized by Title 10. Then the adjutant general reports to the president. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Guard leaving their states, going to another state, that's federal. That requires Title 10, especially with the border, because that's a federal issue, not a state issue. I mean, come on, people, it's that simple. President Trump said recently we're going to have voter ID, whether Congress approves it or not. You know what that is? That would be martial law. Now watch this. I'm going to read this. This is page 795 of the PDF, and then it's page 767 of the Law of War Manual. There are, under the Constitution, 3 kinds of military jurisdiction. One to be exercised both in peace and war. Another to be exercised in time of foreign war without the boundaries of the United States. Or in time of rebellion and civil war within states or districts occupied by rebels treated as belligerents. And a third to be exercised in time of invasion or insurrection within the limits of the United States. Within, meaning within the United States. There is a military jurisdiction that the so, come on, people. Or in time of rebellion and civil war within the states or districts occupied by rebels. And the third to be exercised in a time of invasion or insurrection within the limits of the United States, or during rebellion within the limits of states maintaining adhesion to the national government when the public danger requires its exercise. The first of these may be called jurisdiction under military law, and is found in acts of Congress prescribing rules and articles of war, or otherwise providing for the government of the national forces. The second may be distinguished as a military government, superseding, as far as may be deemed expedient, the local law and exercised by the military commander under the direction of the President, with the express or implied sanction of Congress. December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. While the third may be denominated martial law proper, and is called into action by Congress or temporarily when the action of Congress cannot be invited, and in the case of justifying or excusing peril by the President in times of insurrection and invasion, or of civil or foreign war within districts or localities where ordinary law or no longer adequately secures public safety and private rights. There you go. That's everything you need to know right there. Executive Order 13823. Remember, Obama issued an executive order in 2009. Now, the executive order itself doesn't close down Guantanamo Bay, but because Obama put it in executive order, that executive order must be addressed. President Trump revoked Obama's executive order for closing Guantanamo Bay on January the 30th, 2018. President Trump issued Executive Order 13823. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go back and watch the painful debates and painful campaign trail of quote-unquote Joe in 2020, he talked about closing Guantanamo Bay over half the time. How come, if Joe was president, how come he did not terminate a single national emergency by President Trump? He had no Title 10 or Title 32 invocation by the United States military. And that right there. How come he couldn't terminate Executive Order 13823? But he campaigned on it. But he couldn't take one pen and terminate, which is executive authority. That's what an executive order is, executive authority. I mean, you know. 2018 National Biodefense Strategy. Go look it up, ladies and gentlemen. You want to relive 2020 again emotionally? Go read the 2018 National Biodefense Strategy. How did they know to write in the 2018 National Biodefense Strategy what you're going to feel in 2020? Well, because we knew, go back to your undesirability clause of the Law of War Manual, we knew that the deep state would retaliate. What were the two big things they could retaliate with, ladies and gentlemen? That would confuse you, create chaos, create pandemonium, create more division, make it to where you don't want to listen to a retired veteran show you military laws, military strategies, military tactics over federal laws first. Nuclear and a bioweapon, health. Nuclear and health. And they succeeded in that because we knew they would retaliate. We knew when we detained all these people and put in replacements for the time being until we clean this whole thing out, when you take out people, you watch this in movies. This is what's hilarious about it. You watch this in movies, you watch this in TV shows. When you take out leaders, they have all these gates. They have all these checkpoints. And they have all these stipulations. If you ain't heard from me by this time, do this, do this, do this. You watch it in movies. You watch it in TV shows. But you don't want to listen to retired military in a special operation, in a special position, show you the laws and the orders, but more particularly the strategies and tactics that are visual daily for you to see that the whole thing has been a military operation. We had some undesirable parts that we all had to go through, but we've been here with you the whole time. Bingo. It was not President Trump and us in the military putting 2020 on you. It was the deep state, because Fauci told you 10 days before President Trump took his oath, January the 20th, 2017, Anthony Fauci told you at Georgetown University, forever timestamp, he said in a few years, this presidency will experience a big, a monumental breakout, a pandemic. How did he know that? We knew, and we were prepared. Operation Warp Speed, others call it a conspiracy theory. That's because they have zero respect, zero appreciation, and zero gratitude for the military. The White House Military Office, the most recent White House Military Office on Google, if you went there, is Obama's. Do you know what the White House Military Office does? If you listen to me, you should know. The White House Military Office, that's all your logistics, air travel, everything by Air Force One, Air Force Two, Marine One, Marine Two. So how come there's not an archive page of President Trump the first time and President Trump's just a regular president? Where's the White House Military Office? Where did it go? What happened to it? Order of successions. Every president had an order of succession in a military domain except for quote-unquote Joe. Well, there's your puppet government. No military. Undesirability, civil affairs. But even that wasn't real. The All-Pen wasn't even Joe. None of that was real. Military takeover. The undesirability. It's all in our law of war manual. During the debates, quote-unquote, Kamala mentioned there was two people she mentioned. The Wharton School of Finance, which is hilarious. That's where President Trump went to college. She mentioned two people that were backing her. The Wharton School of Finance, President Trump's college, that's laughable. And then two, she mentioned Goldman and Sachs. Ladies and gentlemen, Goldman and Sachs and J.P. Morgan, all these people have been hit by the SEC so many times. In 2008, one of those was the largest in SEC history to be hit with fines. Why would you? That is that simple. That back when I was showing this to people, I'm like, people, the people, they were the leading cause in the 2008 recession. And this, if for people that thought Kamala was real, she's sitting here saying, "Oh, these are the people backing my plan." The ones who created the largest recession in history, and I'm the dumb one. Again, Melania documentary, highly recommend it. 45-47. All right, I gotta do it. Here it comes. Here comes the big cherry. The big cherry. The big cherry. Here's the big cherry. So, for the people that think old dum-dum, old stammering Stan, as I call him, old quote-unquote Joe, who, I got 81 million volts in my boxers, sitting in my boxer, my whitey-tighties down in my basement. I got 81 million volts. I got the most volts in United States history. He's talking to all these black kids. He's at this little speech, and he's got all these black people around him. He said, all the little black kids want to touch my golden hairy legs in the pool. How did his golden hairy legs go from brown to golden to brown? He's never had blonde hair that I've ever seen in photos. So how did it go from blonde to golden hairy legs? And that who talks like that? Who talks like this? Look at the people who voted this clown in all these years as a senator. This dude sitting in a speech going, the kids want to touch my golden hairy legs in the pool, the black kids. And if anybody wants to yell the word racism, that isn't necessarily racism, but that's some nastyism. That's grossism. Who talks like that? I don't take the Lord's name in vain. He knows what I'm about to say, but Jesus, people, I don't even like repeating that. But it's funny because this is the idiot that people think it was real, especially during the presidency. And the laws, military strategy, military tactics, military laws showed you it's not. But the people that don't know that, they get a hall pass for a moment. But old Joe, quote-unquote Joe, was in this recent video where he was talking about 2014 in Ukraine. But he also said another thing. He just validated that what I've always said, and I could be wrong depending on how they spin it. I don't know how they're going to spin it because I'm not in the war room. But I am on record already saying this, and it's not a right or wrong thing. It's really more of a strategy. Depends on what they're going to do with 2028. But by military law, and every veteran knows this, that knows the law, and there's a few on here watching, particular veteran I see all the time on my Instagram, who reads the books, and great veteran, all right? There's a lot out there who do. But it's not a right or wrong thing. But by military strategy and military tactics of irregular and unconventional warfare, by those, and it's not even theoretically, because it's not a theory, it's by law, but military law, 45 and 46 and 47, but more specifically 45 and 46 were not actual presidential terms. It was a military operation. It's a military occupation, which means the whole thing is a military operation. It wasn't a presidency. They had to use terms of the presidency because give the people what they want. Majority of the people don't know a single word from a single sentence of a single law. Well, let me take it back. A single word of a single sentence of a single paragraph of a single law. So it goes back to who's in command, who's in control. Why did we have to run this operation? Why did we have to put a military government on? Why did we have to put a military occupation on our own nation, which you just saw the 3 different kinds of military jurisdiction under the Constitution and how they're deemed necessary? And then I've showed you the undesirability, which it is. It wasn't fun in a lot of ways, but it's worth it. But I also showed you, though, how, quote-unquote, Joe abandoned, and it's written in the mainstream media, and that's in the Law of War Manual, which validates the military government. Then I showed you all these examples, and you've heard me on multiple podcasts show you all these examples of things that, quote-unquote, Joe did not do, that every president's done, all the things that validate, the military funeral, the funeral in January the 2020, all these validations. So in military strategy and military tactics, which most people don't have an appreciation for because they don't know how to appreciate it because they knew nothing about it, because they don't know anything about laws and orders either, but 45 and 46 were not presidential terms. And quote-unquote Joe just validated old Derek. Old actor Joe just validated Derek in his recent video. In the video, he says, at the end of March 2024, we had 2.2 million jobs created. My Instagram paused. He said, I'm right on the topic. I'm over the target. It's pausing again on Instagram. They know I'm about to say it. Let's see if it'll unpause. So, it's on pause right now, so let's see if I can get this out. So, he said at the end of 2024, I had created 2.2 million jobs. And then he said this phrase, I'm going to say, he said in President Trump's in his first year of president, he said, he's created 185,000 jobs. So you go over to Google and you type in, how many jobs did President Trump create in first year of presidency? Well, it brings up what's recent right now, what's recent and relevant. What did it say? It said 181,000 jobs have been were created from January. Well, actually, you did a different number. They do December to December, but December to December. So December 2024 to December 2025. Said 181,000. Did you pick up what it said though? It's terminology that matters, ladies and gentlemen. Because if President Trump was just a regular president, and if he was just, not even a military operation, none of that, if, quote unquote, Joe was not in a military operation, actor, etc., by terminology, he should have said that President Trump in his second presidency, he's only created this amount of jobs. He said in his first year as president. When you go to Google and you type in how many jobs did President Trump create in his first year of presidency, it says his first year of presidency is 2025. And the number adds up with what quote-unquote Joe said in his first year of presidency. Only 4,000 jobs off. 185,000, 181,000. 2025 was not President Trump's first year of presidency, ladies and gentlemen. Now, people out there, what's going to happen, you're going to have the idiots and the doubters and the naysayers and the negative Nancy's and the Debbie Downers, and the world's falling on them. They're going to be like, oh, well, he makes mistakes, and he stutters and stammers, and he's not all the way there. No. See, those are people who don't know the whole strategy, the whole tactics, the whole operation. They have zero appreciation, zero respect, zero gratitude, and a lot of them don't know too because they don't even know what's going on lawfully, military, and federal. And what's going to happen is what President Trump just said the other day in the State of the Union. He said specifically, he said, what is going on in the state of Minnesota alone with Somalia will give us a balanced budget. He said it is that big and that much money that it will give us a balanced budget. Guess who has an executive order with Somalia? Obama. So see, all this is a takedown. Follow the money. We found the money. We had the money. We've taken it back. We've taken control. And then President Trump said specifically about the tariffs, he said, first off, I don't have to have congressional authorization. In the State of the Union, I don't have to have congressional anything. It's already been approved. And then he also said, for you, the people that he said I love the most, what did he say? That these tariffs are going to do what? Eliminate income tax. So when this is all said and done, not one single liberal will have a hero left standing. All of it is going to be exposed, and it's going to show the ones who is and who ain't. It's going to show the operators, etc., 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 etc. It's a military strategy. It's chess. We played chess with their pieces that they used unlawfully. We played chess with their pieces. Was it desirable? No. But we had to. We had to do it. And thank God, you should be thanking God that there's military strategy, military tactics, military laws that supersede, that Congress has deemed all these years. Congress, it told you in the Law and War Manual that there are 3 kinds of military jurisdictions under the Constitution. We've been around before the Constitution. Military law and military, we came before the Declaration, we came before the Constitution. We're the first line of defense, and we're the last line of defense. And it's the old saying, would you rather save 10,000 people and lose 10 million? Or would you rather lose 10,000 people and save 10 million people? And people out there saying that chess is BS, like the queer boy, he's nothing but what he is. He's nothing. To God, he's somebody, but to me, he's nothing. He just took a giant crap on all the military, every memorial grave in this land. We all served, every veteran, past, present, deceased, alive. Every soldier, every veteran, we swore in the same Title 10 and Title 32 oath. If people are doing what they ought to be doing, reading what they're supposed to be knowing and studying, this is easy. We would take this nation back. We would have taken it back long before people like me have been yelling this for years. If people like that were doing what they're supposed to be doing and knowing what they're supposed to be knowing, this would be game over, especially these quote-unquote influencers who are not part of the military, who are not part of special operations, who are not in secret military, who are not in any position whatsoever, if they knew what they were supposed to know. Because again, the 45-47 is President Trump's legacy. It is different. It has been different. Not a single thing can you point to was unconstitutional. And if you try to make that case, you're the enemy. This is that simple. It's not difficult. You want to know what's going on, there's a law for it. You want to know what's going on, there's an order for it. You want to know what's going on, it backs the Constitution. It backs our foundation. It backs everything. And these people out there, these soldiers abusing their uniforms. You want people to listen to you, but you violate the very law that you're saying is being broken. There's no principle in that. There's no integrity in that. There's not there. That's the saying, two wrongs can't make a right. And it's all right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. And everybody, you have to cut it off. You have to understand technology. When you comment on certain people, the wrong people, when you comment, when you view it, when you comment, especially when you like it, when you share it and love it, and it's the wrong thing, you're just building them up. It's the algorithms. All you're doing is building up the algorithm. So you got to take control. You have to. Because the biggest thing is if you knew what you're supposed to know by laws and orders, strategies, tactics, laws and orders, you would have peace and calm, and you would have your fruits. You would see the fruits. You know the fruits. You'd be able to identify the fruits to know to be calm if you don't have an answer yet on something you want an answer for. This ain't about you. This is about us as a whole. It's not about you individually. Your time, your timeline, when's it going to be over and all that. Stop with that. This is about humanity. It's an operation. If you knew the strategies, tactics, laws, and orders that are currently invoked right now and have been for 10 years, over 10 years, then you would relax. Then you would also be able to be calm. You'd be in good spirit. You would be laughing. You'd be cutting up. You wouldn't be worried. You wouldn't be stressed. You wouldn't be anxiety. None of that other stuff. You would know the undesirability is going to be worth it over here. We're not in the undesirability phase anymore, by the way. If you're in undesirability, then you don't know what's going on. Okay? So, dump that now. We're in the good part now. We're on the home stretch now, is what they call it. We're on turn 4. We're on the home stretch. You should be excited. So if you knew what you're supposed to know through those, then you'd be patient on the arrest. All these arrests you keep demanding. You didn't even know about it to begin with. You knew nothing about it to begin with. You've never been there. You never fought for it. You weren't there. And you know how we know? Because of your fruits. You displayed your fruits. You displayed your bad fruits because you weren't around in 2020. We watched you. We know who you are. We were the ones ostracized. We were the ones alienated. We were the ones called crazy. We were the ones who were cast away from our own family, called crazy, called all kinds of things. We know who you are. Now you're demanding all of a sudden because you come into some kind of knowledge or information. Now you're like, oh, I support this, but nothing. It's an operation. The whole 45-47 is an operation. We're not done with it yet. The whole thing is a visual of the military government, the military occupation, the military operation. We're not finished yet, so chill out. And if you knew what you're supposed to know, you'd be chill. And if you didn't have an answer yet for something you're looking for an answer for, you'd be chill because we're not there yet. You got to learn prevention. This war is not, it wasn't fought. It wasn't set up for you to fight. Majority of the people don't know what is going on. So that shows you right there, it wasn't developed for you to fight. The war is between military and this global regime. We've taken care of that. It's the rollout process. The arrest will come when people are appreciative of what's going on. When people are grateful and thankful and respectful of what's going on. Because we got to get the other side, the evil side, but the corrupt side, we got to get their brainwashed little children to be appreciative too. This was not about Republicans, conservatives, and patriots. This is about humanity. So when we get 75, 85% of this country going, hey, what the heck, demanding this, that, all right, they want it now, let's give it to them. So you got to see what the timeline is, and the only way you can know the timeline is to know what's going on lawfully. And then realize it's not for you individually, so stop griping and complaining individually and going, wait, this is a bigger picture. It's not there yet. It will be there. President Trump said all roads lead to Obama. Have you seen Obama yet in any kind of any? Wait! Be patient. President Trump posted, would you like to see Obama in military tribunal? He don't post willy-nilly. He don't just post nonchalantly. Chill out. You need to learn prevention. Military law talks about prevention. All of you holier than thous, all of you experts all of a sudden that were nowhere around in 2020, COVID, nowhere around when President Trump declared Jerusalem capital, all you Israel haters, none of you were mad then. None of you were raising sand then. None of you Republicans, conservatives especially, were raising sand then. Where were you then? So it shows you know nothing. You don't know what's going on. You're not appreciative. You're not grateful. And you don't even know the laws and orders and vote. They're actually helping you, for you, and not even your war. It's because you didn't know, so we're having to treat you like a little toddler who didn't know and go, well, we know you didn't know, so chill out. But now you want to yell and cuss and demand things that you never knew about before. That goes back to the woman with the brooch. Coming there looking for $200, $300. Oh, I need some bucks. He goes, I hate being honest. This is where I hate. And he goes, yeah, I'll give you $15,000. Then she goes, well, you give me $18,000. Didn't even know what she had. That's what you look like. When you didn't know anything about laws and orders, and all of a sudden now you're in demand mode, when you didn't know to begin with, you look ignorant. You look atrocious. You look all the other words you don't want to hear me say, but you look it. If you don't want to be called it, don't look it. You don't want to be called it, don't act it. Prevention. Our law war manual talks about this. Our law, everything in military talks about prevention. It means don't judge a man on his past. Let's make sure he don't sin in the future. It's an attitude. It's a strategy. It's a mentality. All of you out there, you want something to be wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Negative, negative, negative. Debbie Downer. Negative Nancy. Flip your attitude around. How about let's try to find something right. Make something right. How about be a warrior? How about have a good spirit? How about have a good attitude? How about be involved the right way? Why are you always looking for something wrong in everybody and anybody on any level? Relationship, friendship, family, you're always looking for something wrong. You're negative. Why? There are two things our founders said were stupid to argue about. Religion and politics. because you're always going to have a different view. That's okay. That's all right. But we got to have a set standard for everybody. But we got to prevent it. You're the ones who let the swamp grow. You're the ones who let the swamp flourish. You allowed this because you didn't know any laws and orders. You don't know principles. You don't know standards. You don't have them. You don't have your life based on it at home. It starts at home. You don't even have it at home because you're negative. You're hateful. You're spiteful. You're unappreciative. You're ungrateful. And you have no respect. And then you demand something, which means you want us to do it, which means you didn't do it to begin with, and you're not doing it, and you're demanding us to do it, which means you're not in control either. And you don't even know your own civil rights, civil duties, civil authorities, civil everything. You're the government. We're the government. We the people are the government. But you allowed the swamp. You're the reason we're in a military government. You're the reason we're in a military occupation. You're the reason we had to do this. So chill out, be appreciative, be grateful, be thankful, be respectful of every single person in a position in military, but especially someone that leads you to elevation, leads you to truth, leads you to knowledge, leads you to laws, leads you to orders, leads you to the verbal and visual validations. They're there if you want them. But change your freaking attitude and learn how to prevent the swamp from growing back. That's where your fight's going to begin. That's where your fight's going to begin in 2028 and on. You're going to have to learn to prevent this swamp from getting in your town halls, your city councils, your counties, your representatives, your local representatives, your state representatives, your U.S. representatives. You have got to sharpen your skills. You have to feed yourself with knowledge, feed yourself with truth, feed yourself with things that only elevate you. It's not some surface level pansy, queer boy, soldier violating his uniform, and all these other things, all wanting a name and a face just to be a name and a face. There are people who have lost their life in this nation for you. A lot of them have been my family and my family's friends and family. I trace back to I'm a son of the Revolution and a son of the Confederacy. I'm a Native American. My lineage is this nation, and none of you are going to take it from us. I can assure you that. No one's tried it yet. They're all taught. They love our milk and honey, but they preach about another way of living, like the Merle Haggard song says. But like his song also says, when people start doing what they ought to be doing, then they won't be booing no more. Pretty simple. Know what you're supposed to know. Apply yourself accordingly and appropriately. Everything that President Donald John Trump is the face and image of is constitutional by law. It's constitutional everything. It supports the Declaration. It supports our foundation. It supports all of our founders' logic, philosophies, ideologies, everything. And you better start listening to people like me who read the things you don't want to read and study the things you want to study. You better start listening. You better start unfollowing some people out there who do nothing but stir you up. What do you think about this? Question mark. That is to get algorithms going. They don't care about what you think. All these short little questions, all these little stuff, they don't care about you. They have nothing on the line. Nothing. Telling you, 45-47 is his legacy. And it's been done accordingly and appropriately. And not one single flaw, not one single thing can you point back that was unconstitutional. 45-47 is his legacy. It's world history. And you're witnessing world history, you're living through world history, and you should appreciate it. You should love it and respect it. So anyway, I managed to get out of here under 3 hours. What do you know? I thought this was going to take longer. 9 pages of notes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all there. Validation comes daily, it comes weekly, it comes monthly, if you're tuned in, plugged into the right things. All right? The good Lord gave me this platform. I don't have subscriptions. I don't have advertisements. I can't even monetize my Facebook if I wanted to. All right? But I don't want to. The only thing I have is some apparel, right, that says 1776 Nation on it and a few other things. If you're a patriot, I can't make you buy it. My books, this one right here is selling like hotcakes. Matter of fact, it's the Midnight Rider Bible. It's got every bit of all of our foundation in it. All the things you need to know, all right? And so I can't make you buy it. So see, when you hear people out there say he's a grifter, that also shows their allegiance to the deep state, because if I was a grifter, I would have subscriptions and I would keep all my intellectual property to myself and make you buy it straight out the gate. Every one of my books, it's all on my social media, everywhere. Now you have to piece it together. The books have it in chronological order, but if I was a grifter, I'd have subscriptions and I wouldn't give away all this IQ that I have that the good Lord gave me through my parents and my lineage. All right? But they are #1 bestsellers. This is part 2 again. Part 1's the brown one. But this is the big one. Then I have a #1 bestseller in country music. I'm the first to do what I've done in country music. Right there. Yep. Expose the whole dirty system. This shows you the money. Where the money goes. All of it. Follow the money. I had billboard hits before. So if you're following, make sure you're following the correct pages. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fake pages out there. Good Lord have mercy. But that's to be expected. They're frauds and, but anyways. So Linktree, LINKTR.EE/1776 Nation. The fraud pages will cut the video off before they won't even have the Linktree on it. They'll rip this video and cut that off. So make sure in the comment boxes you see that, which again they're going to cut the video off, so no one's going to see that. But anyways, there is so much validity daily. I personally hate that people are struggling and anxiety, stress. But my delivery method is to get up under your feathers and ruffle you to motivate you to go read and study. I'll still have people emailing to this day. They'll say, what do they say? They'll say things like, oh man, I finally read and I finally studied and oh my gosh, it makes sense. You got to read, you got to study. It's initiative, ladies and gentlemen. It's all there. So there's nothing going on unconstitutional. It has nothing to do with, being secretive or nothing like that. This is a true military takedown. When we get through all this, your income taxes, your tax, all this stuff, you won't be working 2 and 3 jobs. I mean, you're going to be so happy and free. And I just hope and pray that you thank every military personnel that that's a part of this, and also veterans that's been vocal in your community as well that knows what's going on. Be appreciative and thankful, because we keep an oath. When we take that oath, we keep it. And when you're retired like me, I can still be tried under the Uniform Code of Military Justice in the courts martial. And I take that serious. That's why I'm very careful what I say. They let me have a personality. I deliver it the way I want to deliver it. But I do not mislead you with propaganda and drama. Everything I talk about is in a law and an order with a visual and verbal validation.